It's football season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank.
Time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile a while.
I wanted to, go with the normal thing that we do. We have a little fun. I'm the champion. It's all fun and stuff. And then the Dallas Mavericks decided to tell all the Dallas Maverick fans, go to hell. We don't want you. I am so glad this is a show that we drink on, because you and I are drowning in our sorrows. Or do we think this is the trade that brings the Mavericks that title? And yeah, I know it says it's a Super Bowl preview show, but we got other things to talk about first. Hey, Noe, how you doing, buddy?
I mean, I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
I was trying to see how long I could get that rant to go. Just, it fizzled out pretty quick. This is supposed to be, and it will be, the Super Bowl preview show. We're going to talk extensively about the Super Bowl here in a little while. But because of what has happened with what the Dallas Mavs did and some other things, Justin Trucker coming out. I didn't realize that the AFC North had a massage therapist program, but apparently they do. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other things, and then we will get into what it's going to be. I know it's not the teams America wants. With Kansas City's weird. People just don't like them because they win. And this year they've won with some close calls and stuff. Legitimately, everything about the Kansas City Chiefs should be likable. Like, they have a perfectly likable quarterback. Yeah, I know his brother and something his wife, but they have a likable head coach, a likable program. Yet people just hate them because they're winning.
Yeah, I mean, they're just the new version of the Patriots from the
or the Cowboys from the 90s,
or the Cowboys from the 90s, or the 49ers from the 80s. It's just envy. I don't hate any of those teams. The only team I actually do hate, and we've talked about this a lot, is the Eagles, only because I'm a Cowboy fan.
But you respect the Eagles. Like, we've joked, like the day we started really hanging out and we're talking football, and we're like, man, we both hate the Eagles. Yeah. Man, those 80s Eagles are kind of fun. Oh, yeah, they were. Man, those 90s Eagles, they weren't too bad. Yeah, and I really liked it. God dog it, we kind of like the Eagles, don't we?
I'm never going to go that far. But, yeah, I do respect how they run their organization. I like how competitive they consistently are. So, yeah, I mean, I respect them, but, yeah, I still hate them. But we'll talk about the Super Bowl later. And you know what? The funny thing is, this whole show was supposed to be about the Super Bowl only.
We're only going to do like an hour show, just do a Super Bowl. I wanted to do better graphics, but with some change today with good things that, like, with an advertiser and everything. And so I wasn't able to do it, but we have like in-depth stats, folks. Like, I'm talking about, we have legitimate stats, like stats that blow my mind. I think Noe went and played a year on 1997 Madden and just pretended these are the stats for these guys, but we were going to do it all. It was going to be, I was going to lead in with dun, 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 the old Monday night and everything. And then I will go ahead and say this. The Dallas Mavs did what I think is one of the top 3 shocking trades of sports in the last 50 years. I mean, seriously, the last 50 years, if not more. Somebody, Bill Simmons, who I enjoy for the national stuff, he talks about basketball, sports, and pop culture. He says it's the biggest shocking trade in the history of the NBA. I don't think he's that far off.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back in the history of the NBA, I really can't think of anything else that was this shocking I mean, this is also pretty historic if we really think about it. I mean, there's never been a time in history mid-season where two all NBA players were traded for each other. It just doesn't happen at all.
So we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about this. But first off, how you doing? What you drinking? We got to get there.
Well, I'm doing good. Like I said, I'm drinking some Weller Special Reserve. Hard to find in Texas, so if I can find it, I will get it. How are you, Terry? And what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. I am drinking some beach whiskey and some vodka. Beach whiskey we'll talk about here in a minute. That's the thing. I got to move this a little bit. I'm trying to figure out which way to move this. Where my name. Anyway, I'll do it here in a second. I'm doing well. I wanted to talk about. I was going to do this anyway, but I want to talk about. We had a blast Thursday. We had a semi-annual. Like NWO versus WWE, sideline to sideline versus OutDrank The Coverage happy hour. We had some great steaks, some potatoes, some great drinks, and it's kind of nice to get you and Grant in the room, and I do appreciate that y'all stopped biting each other after the first hour.
Yeah, he brought some Macallan 15, so I had to, ease up off of him. And he left it here for me too, so that was really nice of him. So
that's one thing I give all of us credit. When we come over and we bring liquor, we usually that's what you're supposed to do. You leave it at unless it's something like it's something special, but even then, usually that's the whole point you're bringing it over is to share. Like when I share with you my love of diesel, that is so that you can share and we can symbiotically fuse together in the nightmare fuel that is. Now, we're not going to do that for the Super Bowl, but we are.
If Terry can reach.
I had put it over there. So if you know how we do this on Mondays when the Cowboys would lose, we'd do a shot at 99 proof. And if they lost back to back, we would have to do, however. Thankfully, they only had the 3-game losing streak this year, so it wasn't too bad. But we've decided that we will do a shot of 99 proof for every Eagle touchdown. So, damn it.
We did?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, so I guess when you run the show, you can make these rules that don't make any kind of sense, but okay.
I'm just trying to get an excuse to drink banana 99 proof, brother. What's wrong with that? But yeah, so if you don't know, we're going to be having a live show for the Super Bowl stream party. We will start. We haven't really decided when we're going to start yet. I don't want to start too early. We probably will just kind of start right at kickoff. I don't care because we're doing other stuff too. We're recording a look back Super Bowl special. We might do a couple of other little spots that we're starting to work on. Again, we've talked about it. 2025, we're doing different shows in different ways and all that. And so we'll probably start right about kickoff. We're going to have an awesome menu. I cannot wait. When you come over early and we record the other stuff, you and I will be given spinach artichoke dip, queso, and a very nice deep charcuterie board that's going to have jellies and breads and the meats that you can eat and the meats that I eat. Well, I eat all the meats. I'm the meat eater. Wait, never mind.
This is not OutDrank The Coverage after dark.
Yeah, it's getting there. Just give us time after. The Super Bowl show might. And then during the Super Bowl, we will be getting Philly cheesesteak sliders and then Kansas City barbecue chicken sliders and New Orleans shrimp cocktail. So that'll be we're getting it in courses, and we're actually going to have a setup. We're going to have a live studio camera in the kitchen as studio wife is making this stuff. And we will occasionally during the live show flip over to her and she'll be explaining what she's putting on the plate and all that kind of fun stuff. We cannot wait to tell you who the sponsor is. You'll find out Sunday. We are so excited about that. Speaking of sponsor, we got to give love for our sponsor. You can see the banner. And of course that is L Dogs Gourmet Hot Dogs. We got more talk about them. They've re-upped with us. We're happy to have them back on. We love their hot dogs. We've even got to name a hot dog of the month. We'll give that to them here in a minute. But now let's go ahead and get into the show, get to the attention. Let's start talking serious stuff. It happened. It was weird. So a couple weeks ago, I was driving up to Racetrack to get some drinks. And I don't listen to radio. I just always have, if I'm in the car, I either have my phone connected to the car, or a lot of times I just wear an earbud and I'm just listening to a podcast and all that. And I was listening to an NBA podcast, and it was about, just where the Mavericks were. And, it felt like they were, if they could get everybody back healthy, they were one of the best teams. When they had their starting five out, they literally led all the metrics in the NBA. The metrics of the NBA. But the problem was they haven't been able to stay healthy. And something in my mind, and I almost messaged you, I almost said, what if they traded? And I was thinking Kyrie or Clay. Like, what if they traded one of them to try to kickstart things? And then I said, well, what about Luka? And I'm like, no, it just doesn't feel like that's going to happen. But my mind kind of was like, it kind of does feel like that could happen. And then 3 days later, was it Friday night? Was it Friday night, Saturday night? I can't remember.
Sunday morning at 12 something a.m.
Yeah. Because I was just about done for the night. Like, studio wife and I had some drinks and some food. And we were watching movies and stuff, and she had dozed off. In fact, I had kind of put her to bed, and I was kind of coming in to make sure the dog has got some water. Things you do right before you go to bed. And then I got an alert, and I'm like, I'll check it in the morning. But I was like, let me go ahead and check it while I'm laying down. And I sat right back up. I'm like, no. I kept thinking this was fake. And of course, if you do not know, and we'll talk the whole trade, but the main core of the trade basically is the Dallas Mavericks traded 25-year-old face of the franchise, Luka Dončić, to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. What were your initial thoughts? Well, I know what your initial thoughts were because you told me, which was funny because I could tell you'd been drinking. Let me think on this, meaning I'm too sleepy and cross-eyed. I'll need to come back to this. But what were your thoughts when you woke up the next day?
I thought it was a good move. And here's why. I actually kind of agreed with Mavericks GM Nico Harrison. I know it's not the most popular opinion, but you kind of have to remember Luka and his. To me, the thing is he has the superstar mentality, not mentality, but like the superstar talent. Like, he was able to guide this team to a championship when he had a good roster around him, some good centers, a good complement in Kyrie Irving. But my problem with him has always been his weight issues, like his conditioning, his diet. It almost seems like with someone with that kind of talent, I almost wish they had that Mamba mentality, like Kobe or Dirk, or that commitment to making your body your temple, like LeBron James. But he doesn't, and he'll just be chilling, smoking some hookah and drinking some beer, which is cool. I'd love to hang out with him, but he has the superstar talent. He just doesn't have the superstar mindset. And to me, I'm not going to commit almost $400 million for 5 years on him, no matter how good he is. I actually prefer this move. And I know a lot of people will disagree, but that's just my objective opinion. How about you?
I 100% agree with you. I was very okay with this trade. I initially did, what the fuck are they doing? This is stupid, all that. But then I started sitting back, and the first, I want to say this. I think there's a lot of talk of what they got for him, what they could have got, and everything. And I don't think people are understanding. This wasn't Nico and the Mavs shopping him around. This was Nico Harris, the GM, and kind of basically now the face of the franchise, because the owners are not like Cuban, the new owners. They're step back. And I know people think that they're trying to devalue the franchise to move them to Vegas. That ain't going to happen that way. And if they did, the NBA would immediately have a new team in Dallas the very next year. Dallas is a top 5 market. Dallas has now been to 3 NBA title games since 2006. They've won 1. They are a cornerstone franchise at the moment, and they have been for the last 20 years. Yeah, there was the stretch after Dirk won that they kind of floated around, and then Luka fell in their lap. But the thing is, Nico wanted Anthony Davis. This wasn't let's get what we can for Luka. This is, we want your big guy. We think that he will fit in here. He can play power forward. He doesn't have to play center. He's going to have Klay Thompson and Kyrie Irving that can shoot the ball and get the ball to him. He's going to play great defense. My only issue is his age and his propensity to be injured. That's the only thing that scares me. The player, Anthony Davis, is still a top 10 player when he's healthy. It's just the when he's healthy part.
Yeah, that is an issue with Anthony Davis. The Brow is his nickname. He is 32 years old. When he's on the court, when he's healthy, right now he's been out for a week, but he should be back soon. When he's healthy, he's one of the best defensive players in the NBA, and he'll be a great addition to the Mavericks. I also like Max Christie. He's a good project for this team going forward. But yeah, and like with the Mavericks makeup right now, they have 2 really good centers in Gafford and Lively. PJ Washington was the 4. He'll move to the 3, but he can sub in for Davis at the 4 when Davis needs to take a break. So I kind of like PJ Washington's versatility to, spell some time for Anthony Davis. Of course, then your backcourt of Kyrie and Clay. Clay, I didn't envision him as a starter on this team. I envisioned him more as a six-man, like a Jason Terry role back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I like the move. It is something the Mavericks did need. And a lot of I know Luka's a generational talent, but I mean, he's almost 26 years old. He hired an entire Slovenian all-star team to help him stay in shape, and it didn't work. Out of his own pocket, he paid this money to hire people to help him stay in like good conditioning, good diet. It just doesn't work. It's just not who he is. He can't will himself to do this. And I'm sorry, but like there is a cap on him, whether you want to believe it or not. Time will tell. I could be proven wrong. But if he gets the wake-up call with this trade, and think about it, like let's talk about this macro-wise.
Okay.
Think about how this is going to impact the NBA. Because if someone like a 25-year-old Luka can get traded, who led the league in points last season, played 67 games, what's that say for everybody else? Everybody's on the chopping block at that point.
That's a good point. Now, but you're also going to have people say, well, that's just a stupid trade. And it could end up being stupid. But I totally agree with what you said. So like when Dirk was running through the early 2000s and they were losing to San Antonio consistently, or the Kings, and they couldn't get out of that for them for a couple playoff runs and everything, you always felt, one thing, Dirk is going to come back in great shape and he's going to be ready and his game's going to get better. And it did. And then even when it felt like, oh my God, he might not ever actually win the title, you still knew Dirk was going to get better. And I contend, for all the talk of 2000 to 2007, to me, his 2008 to 2013 era, it was just magnificent because he learned to be efficient. That's the thing that Luka just doesn't do. He's not, and I love Luka. I'm not acting like I'm happy that he's gone. It sucks because he was everybody says he's a franchise player. I think, or the face of the franchise, I think he is, but I think a lot of people projected the feelings they had for Dirk and what Dirk was to Luka. Now, to be fair, Luka penned a very emotional, very heartfelt note to the Dallas Maverick fans, very sincere. It's not like he's the bad guy in this. I think that's the thing that in trades you always who gets the better end, but also, well, why was he traded? What was he doing wrong? Some people are trying to start a rumor that like Anthony Davis was mad at that. Anthony Davis and Bronny had some kind of issue. Nobody can just say that the Lakers. And to be fair, the Lakers made a brilliant move too. That's the thing also. Trades can be won by both sides. You can win both sides of the trade. And this is a trade I think short-term people don't think, but I think long-term people will go, oh, that worked out well for both of them.
To be honest with you, I agree 100%. I think all three teams involved in this trade, even including Utah,
might have got out the best. And we'll get the details up here in a minute, and we'll go through them. But Utah might actually end up long-term. They have been able to have a small rebuild and still have all their future, and they still are going to be within 5 years, maybe back to being a top team. And they did that all in transition. There isn't we got to go down and only win 10 games for 3 years and get only top 4 picks and all. They've been able to do it with smart moves, and they're going to have a ton of picks.
Yeah. The Jazz got a couple of second round picks next season. So yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting Jazz team in the next few years. I think they have. I think the sky's the limit, really, for them.
I found a new thing to play with. This is so cool. We're in the spotlight.
Okay.
This looks like one of those old 70s shows where the guest would come on, and they're in the little round thing, like a game show, They're playing Password. The password is stupid. Grant Goodwin, stupid. Ding, 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 ding. You got it. See? But yeah, and we're in the minority on this. I now know how you feel, Noe. I've now lived in your shoes. I'm the minority, but we are like this is
on Black History Month. You're saying this, okay?
That is right. It is. You're welcome. But no, I mean, this is a trade that is. I have seen it from an F++, worst trade in history. All that. This. But let's go back and let's remember when the Dallas Cowboys traded their cornerstone face of the franchise, and everybody was saying how stupid it was.
You remember what I told you in our
Great
group?
train robbery too.
Yeah, the great train robbery too. So great train robbery is what Jimmy Johnson called his trade for Herschel Walker to the Vikings for all those draft picks and Darian Nelson, who ended up going back to the Vikings. But ended up creating the Cowboy dynasty of the 90s because all those draft picks, half of them turned out to be quality starters, and a couple of them ended up being really, really good players. So,
well, and they're in now win now mode. But the great thing is, and I don't think it's protected. And to be fair, if the Lakers are good, you probably won't get a lot out of it. But you do have a theory where you make this run for the next 4 years. You get Anthony Davis's last prime years. He's not at the middle. He's not at the high prime, but he's still in the prime circle. And so you get 4 years of that prime, get a title, don't get whatever, and then in 2029, you have the Lakers' first-round pick.
Yeah, and I think they'll be in good shape. I think if Nico Harrison, which most of what he's done while the Mavericks hasn't been bad. Actually,
nobody liked the PJ Washington trade last year. Remember, everybody was saying that Dallas overpaid and all that. And to be fair, that trade is what set the foundation up for him going, you know what? We're realizing that, and people aren't really noticing this. This is forward thinking. The NBA is getting a little bigger again. The NBA is getting a little bit more inside again. If you have a dominant force inside and you can control the rebounds with everybody taking threes, that's a lot of easy second chance points and get backs. Give you two big guys in the middle. And as Jerry Jones said, if he could have two Deion Sanders, I could rule the world. I'm telling y'all, long term, this might look like it sucks. Luka might go to Lakers, and like you say, LeBron takes him under the wing, and he listens, and he comes out, and they might win 3 or 4 championships. But if Dallas wins a title or two, I think you have to say the trade's at least a push.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, it'd be a push. I hope LeBron gets to Luka because I think Luka has a potential to be in the upper echelon with Jordan and Kobe and LeBron, all the greats, Larry Bird, all of them. But he is his greatest weakness because I think the sky's the limit for Luka Dončić. But if he doesn't want it, then he's just going to be a 30-point-a-game scorer, which is fine, which is one of the best in the league. Almost 10 rebounds, almost 10 assists. Again, any team in the NBA would want that. But you can see he could be more. But as he gets older, his lack of care for his diet, for his conditioning is going to result in more injuries. We're seeing it this year where he's missed half the season. And he'll be back this month, and he might finish out the season, but that's always been a concern for me. I've always had an issue with his diet and condition. He just always, and he does not care to play defense at all.
Try look, that we could talk about Dirk, and I will give Luka credit though. He also had the one thing that Dirk did that was very underrated. He's real good about steals. Luka's always been really good about getting steals, but I also think part of that is because, if they're willing to go to your guy 75 times a night, you're going to get a steal or two. Dirk was not great on defense, but Dirk tried. Dirk, at least, he tried, and that's why Tyson Chandler was so important. When you could finally tell Dirk, you don't have to try. Just get in front of your guy for a second. Luka can't even get in front of his guy for a second. It literally becomes just just like a saloon door going both ways with him. He scores, they score. He scores, they score. And so I totally agree with that. Also, do you know who Luka reminds me of? Might be a little bit too old for you. Bernard King.
He's a little too old for me, but yeah, I remember reading up on Bernard King. Great player. Loved to score. Didn't do too much else. Also, what's his name? The San Antonio great. Man, what time period?
70s.
Iceman?
Yeah, Iceman. I'm trying to think of his name. George Carvin. George Carvin was very much the same way. George Carvin was very much like, hey, I'm going to go get my 50 if we lose. Oh, well. If we win, oh, well. I want my 50. The Sterling Sharp, all those. That's what Luke is. And that's not necessarily bad, but if you can't build the team around that to protect him, then he's always going to be a weakness on the defensive side. And I don't think that's what Jason Kidd wants to do.
You know, and with Dirk, like more I look back on the 2011 Mavericks, that was probably the best constructed team for someone like Dirk. And it was probably one of the best constructed teams ever in the NBA. And I know it might sound crazy, but if you think about it, you had a shooting guard in Deshaun Stevenson, lockdown defender, could hit about 2 to 3 3-pointers a game. You had a lockdown defender in Jason Kidd, currently the Mavericks coach. Finally, he used to be called Ason Kidd. Finally found a 3-point shot, went back to Jason Kidd, but was still a great facilitator. He was a great quarterback for the team. Then you had the Matrix, Sean Marion, in his last year of actually being relevant. Still a great defender, still could get rebounds, still could score 15 to 20 a game. And then, of course, you had Dirk, who actually was, you know, he was 30, 31, 32. The last part of his prime could
He was
at least put his hands out to defend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When he didn't have to worry about if a guy get past him, he was able to be more aggressive, and he was able to meet the ball, the guy with the ball at the top of the lane, and not have to play sag back, and that eliminated the jump shots that used to kill. That's where Dirk used to get killed. If Dirk was around and we can talk about Dirk didn't rebound enough, and that's fine, but he was a 7-footer that for 90% of his career, Donnie was wanting him to be gone as soon as the ball hit the rim and go the other way. He wanted, transition basketball. And again, Luka scoring wise, I think will retire as one of the true legends, right up there with him and Larry Bird. And I know they're both white, but it's just pure scorers, not just a shooter. Because there's different types. There's there's Glenn Rice shooting, smooth, buttery. Then you had Michael Jordan, who just found ways to make points. And then you have the Larry Birds and Luka, who are a little bit of both of those. Luka can kill you with a beautiful three. He can, dazzle you with his passing. He can do all that until he has to go to the other side of the ball. And then I don't think people understand how much of a liability that is in today's basketball when you're a guy who should be either guarding a point guard or a wing and you're not good at it, they're going to just shoot threes over you all day long. And
I would not commit a $400 million roughly to keep him for another 5 years because he was eligible for this super max deal. And I would be nervous. I understand where Nico is coming from. I just could not as well want to pay him $400 million when I know his deficiencies are too great. I can't build a team around that. That's just my opinion.
At least that's what they think. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's what they think. Look, I don't think it's. You and I talked about this just the other day. We're talking about coaching moves. A coaching move isn't good or bad because of the result. You can have a good result with a bad decision. You can have a bad result with a good decision. A good coaching move in a game is when it makes sense. Whatever the reason why it makes sense, the lack of surprise or the total surprise, whatever, that decides if, to me, this trade might not work, but they got the guy they wanted. I can't argue with that. We can argue whether it'll work or not. We'll see. I've said this across a couple of Facebook pages. I think in a few years, everybody's going to look back at the trade and go, okay, it wasn't really that, it's big, but it wasn't neither. I don't think the Lakers are about to run off 4 straight NBA titles or anything. And I don't think Dallas is either. But I think Dallas, I don't think they're done. And this is more going for next year. I think there's, this gives them some salary cap flexibility, things like that. I would rather have Anthony Davis healthy. And again, that's the other key, healthy, playing the Celtics in the NBA Finals this year.
The funny thing is, I think it's been about 17 years, almost to the day, since the Lakers got Paul Gasol from Memphis. And they were in a similar position in the Western Conference standings, where they were better than they were the prior years, but you knew they were still missing something. And in 2008, it was Paul Gasol. And in this year, 2025, it could be Luka, but they're going to miss the defensive presence in the paint of Anthony Davis. I don't know how they address that this season.
Yeah, because look, I love LeBron. I'm not one of those that hates on him. I think he legitimately, is the greatest basketball player in the history of the NBA. We can argue about Michael Jordan and things, but I'm just talking about purely what he did in the game. He's been Tom Brady. He's had different phases of his career. There was the scoring phase, the power forward phase, the wily veteran phase, and I love him. But him and Luka, holy crap, they're going to give up 150 points some nights because LeBron just doesn't have it in his tank to play both sides. Him and Luka can't play both sides for different reasons. LeBron's just at that point where the miles are on him. Luka, for whatever reason, is just not good defensively. I think it's an effort thing. And again, not in a bad way, like I don't care. I just don't think at the end of the day he does care. I mean, he's just as athletic on or he should be, I should say. He should be just as athletic on the defensive side as he is on the offensive side.
He should be. He just doesn't feel like it. It is effort. Like he has the capability of being an all NBA defensive player, which is weird to say now. But in 3 years, if LeBron gets in his ear and like coaches him up and motivates Luka to want to be that all around player, yeah, I could definitely see it. But that's all on Luka. He can be whatever he wants to be in the NBA, but it's all on him. I like that pairing. If Luka listens and has the desire.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that LeBron could be perfect for him. And I hope Luka has success. I'm not a Laker fan now, but I grew up as a Laker fan, so I've never, I don't hate on him or anything. All
the Lakers really need, like in 2017, 2018, the Rockets, they had Chris Paul and James Harden, great backcourt. They needed a front court presence, and they just got a defensive stud in Clint Capella. And he just, like you were saying earlier, gave them second chance opportunities, got rebounds, was redirected shots like our own Tyson Chandler did for the Mavericks when they won the championship in 2011.
Tyson, sorry, he was my favorite. I mean, I loved everybody on that team.
He was just such a difference maker, and I love everybody had their own little thing. Like JJ Barea was that little spark plug off the bench. Peja would come in and hit 3-pointers out the wazoo. It was just like I told you, I love that team. And the more as the years go by, I look at that team. And I think that was probably the most perfectly constructed team. Everybody complimented each other.
We will, you and I have talked about this before. After it happened, I understood a little bit, but I realize now more and more that Mark Cuban won the title and was fine. He didn't care anymore. Not that he wasn't completely, but they should have at least got one more run. They should have at least got the next year to see if they could defend their title. Because the crazy thing is about that team is they had great years, but it wasn't like people were having, oh my God, mind-blowing career years. It wasn't like Jason Terry went from 18 points a game to 40 points a game or anything like that. All of it was just they gelled together so well. And I do think one of the biggest regrets of Dallas-Fort Worth sports history is Cuban did not allow them to at least go one more year and see what happens.
Yeah, man, I agree. But in Cuban's defense, I really thought Lamar Odom would have been a difference maker for that team in 2012, but I didn't realize Lamar Odom just didn't want to come here.
And we also realize now that Lamar Odom was heading down. I mean, to be fair, it's still amazing he's alive.
Yeah, he had a lot of issues. I didn't know, and no one knew really.
He flatlined a couple times, even after he left Dallas. I mean, there was, and in fact, I mean, I supposedly he still battles daily, and has wins and losses on that. But yeah, but just the whole thing, and I understood what Cuban was trying to say. I think he thought that the CBA was going to be way different. I think he really thought that the owners were going to break the players. And so what he was hedging the bet was I'll be able to get some LeBrons and people like that because their salaries won't be as high or the cap will be different. And then it didn't happen that way. And he made a gamble and he lost. But hey, gamble, speaking of, as the owners are basically, and no, they're not going to move them to LA. I mean, to Vegas. It would take many years. If the Dallas of the late 80s, early 90s didn't move, the Dallases of the 2000s or the 2020s aren't going anywhere.
So yeah, that was one of the online rumors is that the Adelson family, who has the majority shares of the Mavericks right now, they made their money in casinos in Vegas. The theory was they were going to try to make this team not appealing anymore, and then when the opportunity to get a new arena came up, the city of Dallas would decline. which would motivate them or, give them the opportunity to just move this team to Vegas. Right now, the Vegas, they have the Golden Knights in hockey, who's won a championship. They have the Raiders, who probably won't win a championship for a while, but I like what they've done so far, hiring Pete Carroll. They got the Oakland Athletics, who are going to be in Sacramento for the next 3 years and are starting to build a winning mentality there. They already improved so much last season. And I think they might actually get to close to 80 wins this coming season. They'll be coming to Vegas in 2028. So that's 3 of the 4 major North American teams. So a basketball team is all they need. So they could either get an expansion team or get one of these other teams to move. So yeah, that was one of the reasons. That was one of the rumors, was that the Mavericks were going to eventually go to Vegas.
And you're not, the mistake people are not understanding in this, though, is you're not going to make a move that devalues your franchises, takes away a top 4 superstar, and then move the team, because what are you then selling to the Vegas fans? Here we come. We're about to tear things down. No, the reason that the whole reason everything happened was Mark Cuban wants to push for gambling in Texas, legalize gambling, casinos, sports betting, the whole thing. And so he stepped away so he could become a lobbyist. And that's what he's doing. And he sold to a somebody who wants to build casinos, because what they want to do here in 10 years, at least within the next 10 years, as soon as possible, within the next 10 years, they want to legalize gambling in Texas. They want to build a casino and put their basketball arena adjacent to it, and it becomes all one thing. And that will eventually happen, and it'll be awesome. It'll be great. But until then, they're not moving the franchise. I just don't think that makes sense.
Well, it'll be awesome for Texas, but Oklahoma and Louisiana will not be happy about it.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Cool, because that's a lot of their revenue. They have a lot of Texans that go to Oklahoma to gamble, go to Louisiana to gamble. So I know they're not going to like it at all, but I mean, that is a reality that'll eventually happen in Texas. Texas just moves slower than any other state.
Yeah. Well, and me and Grant went up to Colorado a couple years ago, and we laughed at all the dispensaries, how many, like every other, if not 2 out of 3 license plates were all Texas people. And we're talking to the people inside the town. They're like, oh, yeah, it's 90% Texas. And, they even joke, like, if Texas ever starts legalizing weed, this part of Colorado's in trouble because they get so much money and especially now with New Mexico, because New Mexico now has legalized weed. But yeah, that's what's going to happen here. And it's going to be glorious. It's going to be awesome, but they're not going to move. And I don't, it would, again, the only way I think that they could facilitate them moving would have to be, the NBA doing a Cleveland Browns type of deal. Like, okay, fine, you can move, but you got to, you're going to keep, it's going to stay the Dallas Mavs here. You're going to become LA something else, and then we're going to just bring back the Mavs the very next year as an expansion team. But that's still a long way away is happening. Because here's the thing. I know everybody's mad that are Maverick fans and that, all that, but if the Mavericks start winning, people will forget Luka. And I contend that I think people are really overrating the love of Dallas for Luka. Like, yeah, it was cool, but again, I think they're mixing him up with the love, that the genuine affection that the town had for Dirk and that Dirk had for the town. And the same thing when you're thinking like Mike Madonna for the Stars. Cowboys have had many. I mean, every generation of Cowboys, there's those Cowboys for life guys that they truly do bleed for their team. I'm not saying Luka didn't, but I just think that people are overrating that love affair.
Yeah, because they don't. It's another great European star in Dallas.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with the Mavericks, it was Dirk. Now it's Luka. Now he's not here. People are wondering, well, why would you get rid of someone that led the league in scoring last year? Is only 25, face of the franchise for the next decade, immense talent, build a team around him. I understand where they're coming from, but if you actually pay attention and see what kind of personality Luka has, someone that doesn't really, he's superstar talent, but he doesn't have the superstar mentality. Ooh. I think I've already said that already. That's the biggest problem. Like, I'm not going to pay all this money to someone that just doesn't have the mentality that I want and someone that I would pay for him. If it was 25-year-old LeBron, no big deal. Pay him. Because I know what I'm getting. And also in reality, you also know what you're getting out of 25-year-old Luka.
Oops, sorry. I'm making sure our feed's working. Go ahead.
Oh wait, Mario Scott messaged us saying rank the love of the Dallas teams. I'm guessing he means out of the 4 major teams in Dallas.
Oh, okay. Dallas Cowboys by far. Number 1, number 1A, number 1B, number 1C. I think the Stars have the, what do you call it? The most intense group. Not the biggest, but the most loyal, the most stars.
The loud minority.
Yeah, the loud minority. The Mavericks have, when they win, a great crowd. When they lose, they're terrible. They're just like any other. The Rangers, okay, so the Rangers are weird. There was a time when the Rangers were the lovable losers. Like they were like a lot of people even call them, they were the Cubs of the AL. The fans. I mean, in the '90s, before they started winning, you went out to watch a great fun game, and they'd either win 10-9 or lose 10-9. And some years they'd win a little bit more than they lost, and then some years they'd lose a little bit more than they won. But they always would hit about 2 million in attendance. And then 2010 through 2013, when you can really expand it, 2010 through 2015, 2016, the Ranger fans go, wait a minute, we can win? And so that's kind of changed now. So when the Rangers don't win, people don't go to the games. But it's always, I mean, it's the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys by such a far stretch that I guarantee you, even on Monday, with all the Luka talk, by the middle of the first hour, they were now back to what the Cowboys coaching staff was doing. I mean, that's why, sports radio is Dallas Cowboys, everything. Oh, and then, by the way, the Mavericks won an NBA. Now, when the Mavericks did win the NBA, because they won, it did take over the town in that moment. Look, Dallas and Texas as a state, I don't mean this as a knock, but they're winners. They want to watch winners. It's very rare, unless you're A&M, that you want to go watch, sell out and you're getting your brains beat. Dallas just doesn't like that. And so, yeah, don't make no mistake. It's the Cowboys, and I don't think anything's close.
That's a good point, because I think this trade kind of addresses 2 parts. One, the Mavericks, they want to be winners. In Nico Harrison's mind, that needs to be more of a defensive-oriented approach. Getting Anthony Davis addresses that. Now, on the other side, the Lakers, LA is a star-studded team. The fans only come there. They need to get like in 2011, when the whole rumors of Chris Paul coming to the Lakers were circulating, that got squashed because I think it was the whole thing with like the Pelicans didn't have ownership, so Daniel Stern was the owner, so he had power to approve or deny the trade, and I think he denied it.
It was the right thing to do, just because of what was about to happen.
It was the right thing to do. And I think that kind of led to what happened this year, where the conversation about this trade was only between Pelinka, the GM for the Lakers, and Nico Harrison with the Mavericks. I think because they go back like 20 plus years. And I think they just met and talked personally because they didn't want this to get out, because if they got out, it might get rejected, or other teams might start bidding and it might drive up the price or down the price. Like they didn't want the distractions. They just wanted to, they're 2 friends that trust each other. They want to just meet and see how they can make this work.
Well, and the Mavericks wanted Anthony Davis. They didn't want anybody else. Now, I'm not saying if I'm trying to think of great interior defensive guys. If one of the other teams didn't offer up another great interior defensive guy, they wouldn't have said, okay, we'll talk about that. But I genuinely think Nico thinks that it's Anthony Davis. And again, right or wrong, I'm not arguing if that's the right move. I'm just arguing the intent. This wasn't I guess this is all we can get for him, like everybody thinks. This was, we want Anthony Davis. We know you want Luka, so let's build something around that.
And for my answer to Mario's question, you answered. I think overall the love generally would be Cowboys by a distant first. I think the Rangers actually would be second.
See, I want to say the Rangers, but honestly, again, because the Ranger fans have now tasted success, it's weirdly changed that of relationship. It's just not about, hey, let's just go out to the ballpark and watch them bang it around a few times, eat a hot dog. If they win, they win. If they don't, they don't. Okay, I'll say it like this to cut you off, and then you can finish, because I think you're going to agree. It's the Cowboys And then number 2 is whoever's winning the most out of the rest. And then number 3 is whoever's the second team winning the most out of the rest. And then number 4 is the last place. And now the great thing is right now, I think the Rangers are going to bounce back this year. The Mavs are still competitive. They're still a team that, again, you get in the playoffs if everybody's healthy. And then, of course, right now the Stars have just continued. Every time it looks like the Stars, and we'll talk about them, they made a big trade. Every time it looks like the Stars get a blow, like Miro Heiskanen being hurt on not a cheap shot, but a play that should not have happened. Mark Stone is too good of a skater to have allowed what he did. He basically tripped, and I think he thought he was gonna. Well, I'm going down, so I'll take out Miro and take him out of the play, and he accidentally hurt him, and he's gonna be out for hockey's weird. They hide everything. All we know is lower body injury, and he's week to week, but. The coaching staff has said, yeah, this is long term. We're just hoping it's not like a tear. And they can't say that because hockey's really tight on their medical stuff. But it sounds like basically they're just trying to see if they're going to have to go in and completely rebuild or just repair. And so he could be back. He might not. But yeah, that's how it works. It's always going to be the Cowboys, no matter their record. And then everybody else is jostling for number 2, and it's usually whoever's winning the most consistent at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I'm just saying in general, though.
Yeah,
I'm gonna just leave the Rangers at 2, just because that's how I perceive it, and then I'm gonna put the Mavericks at 3 and the Stars at 4, which is kind of funny because that's kind of the order of when they came to Dallas. The Cowboys came in 60, the Rangers in 71 or 72,
Mavs in 80,
and Stars in 93.
93, yeah. I think.
I have late breaking news before you continue.
Okay, go ahead.
Rams have informed wide receiver Cooper Kupp that they will be working with him this offseason to trade him.
I kind of figured that was coming. And so let me ask you, this is where I'm going to propose a trade to you that is something we talked about earlier, and I'll go ahead and add not late break, but other news broke today that Myles Garrett has informed the Browns that he would like for them to go look for a trade partner.
29-year-old star defensive end for the Browns, the best pass rusher in football. All 31 other teams would definitely want Myles Garrett, and they would pay a premium for him. So that was a big story.
Let's just say the Cowboys said, hey, we'll give you a 3rd round for Cooper Kupp. And then the Cowboys looked to Cleveland and said, hey, give us Myles Garrett in a 3rd round, and we'll give you CeeDee Lamb in a 4th round. I would do that if I was Dallas. I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do it. I love CeeDee Lamb. But the thing that you and I we were watching a guy that we like watching talking about how much wide receivers are paid and what their value is. I love CeeDee Lamb, but we can get a guy that maybe has 300 less yards and 5 less touchdowns on the season, and he's still 100 reception, 1,400 yard, 12 touchdown type of guy. And so if you could make that, I'm not saying they will, but we were just kind of playing around like, would you have to trade Micah Parsons to get Myles Garrett, or could you give them something that they truly need, and that's a number 1 wide receiver?
I would prefer trading Lamb, and as much as I like Lamb, I would rather just have more diverse offense. I'd rather have a lot of number 2s and 3 receivers.
See, I don't think but that's proved that doesn't work either. We tried that before we had to trade for Amari Cooper that year.
But I've seen it work at other teams. Maybe it could work.
Then we should. Okay, it worked for a year, and look, I love Dak. Don't get me wrong, but Josh Allen's a different type of quarterback.
I mean, true, but think about Dak's rookie year. Now you had Des Bryant, but he was a glorified 2. He had he was getting paid number 1 salary, but he was getting 800 yards. He was getting 800 yards receiving, a few touchdowns. He was mainly known for his rushing blocking. He was a good run blocker.
But he also still commanded number 1 coverage. Safeties were still rolling over to Des Bryant Dak's rookie year. That matters.
What Brian Schottenheimer was trying to do is get back to 2016 Dak, which was run the ball, play action. You don't really need a 1 for that, or especially.
I'm agreeing with you. I want to make sure. I'm just saying the Cowboys did try that, in 2018. And
I agree. Yeah. You need the threat, but you don't necessarily need just one guy to be. I'm okay with multiple options. And I think like a really solid tight end option would really help too.
Yeah, Jake Ferguson regressed this year.
And it could have been injury or just he might have been just on a 1 year wonder in 2023. I don't know yet. Maybe 2025 will give us a better indication. But I mean, there's a lot of talent coming in this draft, both at receiver and at tight end. So yeah, something could be addressed there. I know a lot of mock drafts are predicting the Boise State running back Genty coming to the Cowboys, which I'd be fine with. That would address one of the issues because Rico Dowdle, he's a free agent. He might leave just like Tony Pollard left last season. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. That was the Luka trade was the biggest story. We were just going to talk about the Super Bowl until that happened.
Yeah.
And then another big 3-team trade, which in any other season would have been big. But the Sacramento Kings, they trade De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs to team with Wemby. So you got Wemby, the 7'3" Frenchie at center. You got De'Aaron Fox at guard. You got your Mr. Outside. You got your Mr. Inside. The Spurs already made a drastic improvement this year. They're already like a 500 team. Adding Fox is going to make them a title contender, along with Houston and Oklahoma City in the West. But I really think every team kind of benefited from this. Like if you look at the whole breakout of who went where, it would look like the Kings with all the draft picks because Sacramento, they got 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks for the next 5 years. And they also got Bulls star guard Zach LaVine,
who I like a lot.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. And I think like if you just look at it, it looks like the Kings stole it. But I really think the Spurs needed someone like Fox to be a compliment to Wemby.
Yeah,
and the Bulls needed some extra talent. They couldn't just rely on LaVine the whole time. So just getting extra talent and get the draft picks, I think that really helps them. So I really think this is one of those trades where all 3 teams, the Spurs, the Kings, the Bulls, all benefited. And in any other year, this would have been the biggest trade of the season.
I just realized something. And again, we can argue what they got back in return. That is perfectly fine. But Nico and the Dallas Mavericks front office did what everybody wishes Jerry would do, but they don't understand if you really want Jerry to do something, you've got to shake things up. And that's the thing that's the thing I was talking about. Like, okay, why is everybody so mad at the changes from the year before to last year? No, it didn't work. But you know what? You even said I'd rather be 7-10 than do another 12-5 and be out in the second round. What's the point? Like, at least give me a year off from the playoffs to miss the playoffs. So next year, if they make the playoffs, or at least, hey, they're back in the playoffs. But you have to make a move. You have to be willing to go, okay, you know what? We're gonna gamble. We're gonna gamble that Minnesota doesn't understand that we don't need all the players, so we're gonna take the picks that are assigned to them and just cut all the players. Or Dallas and them saying, you know what, Luka's great. We might have Luka's ceiling. The problem is this might be Luka's ceiling. And it's a great ceiling. But if he can't improve, you're just rinse and repeat. So they said, no, let's go out and change things up. I appreciate that. I appreciate Sacramento saying, you know what, this isn't working. We thought it was 2 years ago. We thought we were on the cusp. We took a step back. So it's time to cleanse and rebuild on the fly. I appreciate that more. I think it's easier to rebuild on the fly than some teams let people on to. They want to make it like, oh, it's a 5-year deal. And no, sometimes you can trade a star for a star.
And I kind of feel bad for Sacramento because a couple of years ago, they won their division. They made the playoffs. They lost in the first round, but
it was a good
playoffs against the Warriors. But like you saw the promise there. Mike Brown, kind of, former head coach for the Cavaliers and other places, coach of the year, ends up getting fired this season just because they did not improve upon what they did 2 years ago. They made the playoffs last year, but they just were not. It was kind of like teetering.
Yeah, it was a different team.
Yeah, so they fired him. They immediately started getting better and they started winning, but now they plateaued again. They're not going to go anywhere, kind of like what they did last season. So kudos to the Kings because this is a big risk. You feel like you feel like you have the talent.
Yeah.
You have star players, and you just need that one extra thing. I'm pretty sure someone like the Hawks, who have Trae Young, are going to have to make some type of move similar as well, because they're kind of like in that position where they might have a down year, but they have an up year, but they're not going to ever get in the
what
top
if Trae Young ends up in Dallas?
Trae Young was the guy the Mavericks drafted, then they traded to the Hawks for Luka Dončić, who got drafted by the Hawks. Yeah, that would be trippy if he actually ended up coming to the Mavericks to actually play for us.
All right, let's go to some crappy news. Well, I guess Dallas Maverick fans, but Houston, Texas native, University of Longhorn legend, the guy that kicked the win at the time, the last game against A&M, kicked the game winner, considered maybe the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL, Justin Tucker, has Deshaun Watsoned us and has been accused by multiple massage therapists that he was inappropriate and things like that. There are even tweets from 21. Some random people, I guess they were in the know, made jokes about, I guess he missed a field goal or something, and they made jokes on Twitter. I guess he didn't see his massage therapist this week or something. So, I mean, this seems like one of those where there's smoke, there's fire. This doesn't seem Now, of course, Justin Tucker's representatives came out and did what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, hey, that's not how it happened, blah, blah, blah. But, man, I know some people got burned on the Me Too. Some did. But for the most part, when there's this much fire this quick, especially after multiple ones came forward and then within a day, multiple more came forward, obviously there's at least something going on with Justin Tucker. And we're talking about now a guy who was a sure Hall of Famer, the greatest kicker in the NFL, might not get into the Hall of Fame. Or if he does, it might be a long, long time from now.
Justin Tucker, 35 years old, 7-time Pro Bowler. He was a rookie kicker for Baltimore when they won the Super Bowl in 2012. I agree. He has the longest kick or field goal in NFL history at 66 yards. I agree with you. I think he's the greatest kicker of all time. He just finished his 13th season. This probably was his worst season, and
but
now
he's solid.
He was still solid. Kudos to his greatness. People thought he was getting old. People didn't know what was going on. He was going through a funk. With these reports, we kind of think maybe he knew these stories were going to be leaked. Thank God that the Ravens didn't make the Super Bowl, because this would have been the only story we would have been talking about all week.
They might have had to send him home.
They might have had to. I mean,
your kick. You got, first of all, when you're in the Super Bowl, you're in special teams are important, especially somebody like him. Again, even as he struggled this year, it's not like he was terrible. He just wasn't up to his normal level of excellency. And I think if they're in the Super Bowl and you're having to find it should be Lamar Jackson's crowning and all that. And no, we got to worry about. Sometimes it's best your team doesn't make the Super Bowl, folks. I'm just going to say that right now. And for Baltimore, I know that sucks, but they might have dodged a huge bullet with that. And you kind of got to wonder. I didn't even think about that. Maybe he knew that these reports were eventually going to break. There was nothing he could do about it, and that weighed on him this year.
That's the only thing that makes sense, because he just went on a steep decline. It just didn't make any sense to anyone. But it's Justin Tucker, so he's eventually going to recover. Oh man, he was known for being like a jack of all trades. Like he was, a great musical artist. Like he had all these different projects and talents outside of kicking in the NFL. He was good at, but I mean, this year he was missing kicks and molesting chicks. I mean, at this point,
you wrote that down. You wanted that. Well played, sir. Intern Noe, the commissioner, the pro, gets the L Dog Gourmet Hot Dog of the Week right there, buddy. Good job. I appreciate that. Speaking
which is available for delivery now.
Yes,
on
sir.
DoorDash and all the other.
I mean, keep talking, but I want to make sure I get this. So we just re-signed them today, so I haven't been able to get everything in graphics. They will be for the Super Bowl. But cool thing is they now are giving us the keys to the hot dogs. We get to name a hot dog of the month. And so we're doing a hot dog of the month this month. Let me see which one we decided on. Oh, I got to find it. I'm going to have to find it, but we have a hot dog of the month. Also, right now, we have a code. You can online order. So when we first started advertising them, they were at Frisco Market, and that starts back up here in a couple weeks. Frisco Market, it's basically their farmers market. They take some time off for the holidays. They start back up. But they also, here's the code. We have our OutDrank The Coverage code, $5 off. If a customer spends $25, all you got to do is use the code LDOGS91. And you get $5 off. They're also Tuesday through Thursday, 4 to 8 p.m. at Cookline Kitchen in Plano, Suite 2000. They do DoorDash. You can pick up orders, and you can pick up online orders when they're at the Frisco Market as well. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And again, you can go online, LDogGourmetHotDog.com. But yeah, they're back on. They're going to be we're going to have fun with some advertising with them for the Super Bowl, and we do appreciate Elgin and them, and they're great hot dogs. I absolutely love it. A couple people that have listened that have went out there told me, man, y'all are so right. Their dogs are amazing. And so you're going to be hearing a lot about them over the next few months, and we're glad to have them on. But anyway, great joke. Well played, sir. And he's probably going, wait, you gave the hot dog of the week a joke about, I guess, is it just
about old Jack Tucker?
Is it third leg Tucker?
Third leg Tucker.
I think mine was underrated. Justin, the massage therapist Tucker. Get it?
The funny thing is, like, it's been recent. Like 2019, it was Patriots owner Robert Kraft, and of course, we all know about Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson and his 24 masseuse lawsuit, which I think he finally settled all of them out of court. So good for him. But he's a scum. But yeah,
I don't know what to tell you because it's not and I think Justin Tucker's like a married. Is he married?
He got married in 2015, and the last allegation was a year after he got married in 2016. So I think he's trying to make sure this never gets proven.
I mean, does it really matter now if it's proven or not?
It's just the perception of him at this point.
Yeah, it's just perception. And, I'm not saying people forget, but I will say this for him, it's a little bit easier as the kicker. He'll have to go through it the first, but eventually he's not on TV a lot. It's not like Deshaun Watson where you're seeing him take, 42 snaps a game and you just,
those road games are going to be tough for him. I almost feel like he has to retire.
Oh, you think? Oh, I don't know.
I mean, it depends on the legitimacy. If there's any legitimacy, he's going to get suspended if any of this is legit.
Yeah, he'll get suspended. But look what it got Deshaun Watson, a historic contract.
Yeah, that's very true. He was coming off a really good 2020 season, and then he got, everybody was banking on, okay, he's in his mid to late 20s, he has all this talent, and then you realize he didn't have the talent anymore.
What do you think? I think all that happened. I think it hurt him. I think part of the reason why Deshaun Watson failed is because of that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. There's a mental. Just like with Justin Tucker this season, he has struggled mightily. Like this is the complete departure. He was automatic every other year. He was automatic, and this year he starts missing these chip shots. I just feel like this was weighing on him. I think he knew this was going to be leaked out, and I think his on-field performance was affected as a result. Just like with Deshaun Watson.
I don't disagree with you. Like I said, I didn't even think about that. I never, in my mind, I didn't even think about the fact that, hey, he could have known, whether it be these people completely telling him or something like, just it was just coming out. But yeah, I never thought about that. By the way, the hot dog of the month this week is the OWT dog. It's $3 off when you get the combo. Now, this is the one I wanted when I went there, but we got there at the wrong time for them. They just opening up and all, and so I really wanted to try the burger. So I got a plain, and I do like to have a plain hot dog when I first eat. Because that's the first thing. The foundation. It's just like when you build a house. Intern Noe the Pro.
You're using my phrase. Okay, go ahead.
It has to be strong. The foundation has to be laid. You got to have your first round offensive line there for a dog to work. But the OWT dog, it's a quarter pound hot dog, all beef, homemade chili, cheese, onions, chili cheese Fritos and mustard on a toasted bun. When you get the combo, it comes with a chips and a drink, so you get $3 off. And if you use the code LDogs91, you get another $3 off, or another $5 off if you spend over $25. So you could basically get $8 off of a meal. Like, so Grant can finally take his wife out to dinner with the pocket change. Have you ever seen Half Bake?
Yes, I've seen Half Baked. Jay Chappelle, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You remember when he goes out on the date with her and he only has like $3, so they have to like get a dog, and then he like steals money from the homeless guy so he can buy ice cream. You don't have to do that now. You can have pocket change and go get an OWT combo, $3 off. Then use LDogs91. You'll get $5 off, $8 off. I know what I'm eating this week. But, hey, my parents are here. I'm going to tell them that's a fancy dinner tomorrow. I just took care of dinner tomorrow. Actually, we're from East Texas. Chili cheese dogs are pretty damn fancy.
That all sounds good. And I live pretty close to there, so I think we'll have to check that out pretty soon.
Oh yeah, and please, everybody, if you go there, tell them you heard about them on OutDrank The Coverage. Again, we'll have a better ad for them on the Super Bowl, because we're going to have a couple of videos. I can't wait for the Super Bowl show, folks. This is going to be so much fun. We always joke. You've seen us do the Monday Night Watch Party. You saw us do the Notre Dame, Indiana college football party. But this one's going to be fun because we're there for the Super Bowl. We're also there for the Super Bowl ads. We'll be talking about those. And we don't have a dog in the fight. And as long as it's not the Patriots and Rams in a Super Bowl, you and I have fun when we have no dog in a fight at Super Bowl, because we just we'll be talking about everything. There might even be some Civil War talk. That's just how it works with us sometimes.
I'm not sure how that's going to relate, but yeah, we could definitely do that.
I'm saying the South will rise again.
Well, the Eagles have a lot of Georgia Bulldogs on their team, and Georgia is the heart of the South, apparently.
There you go. Yeah, that's the Civil War will start with the Eagles running for the South. All right, I think it's time. Can we start talking about the? You want to go Super Bowl preview for the rest of the way?
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanted to talk about?
This is the one thing we were supposed to be talking about this whole time until Luka and Nico Harrison started to, just ruin our weekend.
Well, here we go. Hang on.
Let's do it.
It's time for the old time.
It's
happy
the host,
hour.
intern Noe, the
So
commissioner
pick up
pro, whatever
your
you're
step.
calling yourself these days. And it's the Super Bowl preview. Welcome back. All right, let's go ahead and get to it. Hey, you like the helmets I found?
I love the helmets. I was about to say that. I love that, man. You already know, like the 69 Chiefs and the 80 Eagles, those are beautiful looks.
I love it 100%. And I remember, so the Chief, I'm pointing like everybody can see me point to my screen. The Chief one, that was a look like the just the aesthetics with the coloring, and then the Kansas City Chiefs, how that whole look, that was a thing that was the NFL ran with for a while. Like that was on their like opening broadcast, like they'd show all these helmets and that's how they look. And I've always told you that this is that era where, and the Philadelphia Eagles 80s, that's where I fell in love with helmets. I will say it again, last night or Sunday, the Pro Bowl, I had it on just because I wanted to, watch a little bit of the stuff. I don't mind the flag football, but I miss the helmets. I mean,
yeah.
My love of the Pro Bowl and why, because you had all the helmets on the field at the same time. It was one of those things that should never work, but this is why I give baseball credit. I wish they'd have done it the year they were in Texas, but they go, hey, you know what? We're going to go back to the teams wearing their own look because that just looks right.
It does look right, and I think there's just no interest in the Pro Bowl, and I think they just eliminate everything about the Pro Bowl in general. I kind of wish they just went back to like when I was a kid. They had skills competitions.
Well, they do that. They do that too. They do that on Saturday.
But they don't have like longest throw or 40.
Yeah.
Like those are the competitions I want. I want to see Randall Cunningham slinging it 80 yards like as a kid. I want to see how far Justin Herbert can throw the ball. I want to see how far some of these quarterbacks can throw the ball. I want to see who's the fastest active player right now.
I want to see odd things like, and you can't go crazy. Like you can't have a quarterback trying to block because if they get hurt, but I'd love to see, okay, who has the strongest arm from defense, or who's the kicker, just a random guy. Who's the strongest arm that's not a quarterback, and see them just try to,
basically, you know what, man, this is basically, I want the combine, but at the Pro Bowl.
Yes.
I don't want the amateur athletes to. I want the actual best players in the NFL doing it. And if it means getting some of the participants in the Super Bowl involved, so be it. Just eliminate the Pro Bowl in general. Let's just make it just screw with it. Like just go back to Hawaii, have a combine there, get all the good kickers out there so you can kick the longest. Let's see, you can kick it into like a square peg.
Yeah, do trick shots. Do like trick shots, trick throws.
I would love that.
I do think I think though, for it to work in this formation, I don't think you can take it to Hawaii. I think you need to make it the Saturday in between the Super Bowls. Now they do have a 40-yard dash. Like Michael Parsons was racing different people and stuff. But I love that idea. Screw the Pro Bowl game. Don't even have it. Saturday night in between the Super Bowls, or Saturday night of Super Bowl weekend. And again, you won't have the Super Bowl people there, but Saturday night of Super Bowl weekend, make it be like the new NBA skill. I miss that. And look, the skills competition for the NBA is still fine. It's just we've seen it for 30 years, so it's boring now. But does anybody remember in 1996 when you were like, I am going to sit here on Saturday, turn this TV to TNT, eat me some pizza rolls, and we're about to watch the slam dunk and the three-point?
I miss the NBA slam dunk and three-point contest as it used to be. But these players don't want to do it anymore. Well, all the good ones don't want to do it anymore.
Well, and also I think a lot of it is I mean, I think they did the right thing when they took some years off. The dunk competition had gotten stale. And it kind of still is stale. We've kind of reached a ceiling of what people can physically do. And until somebody can break through and do something like we've never seen before, you're going to see the same things. And
look, man, the only dunk I really want to see that's never been done, but I kind of saw someone try, was Corey Maggette way back when.
Former Duke. What are you talking about?
He did a 360, a front flip, but then caught the ball and then went for the dunk.
We played that on a happy hour last year. We were talking about something. It might have been basketball, but we were talking about something. And you brought that up, and we pulled it up, and we watched it on. I remember that. That was back in the old studio.
That was one of the most impressive things I saw, because it put in my head that, maybe someone can actually get a running start and then jump, front flip, somehow get 10 feet in the air and also dunk the ball. That would be the one thing I would like jaw drop over. But I mean, I don't think I'll ever see that. But to me, the slam dunk's kind of like a movie star. The Rock, for example. He's The Rock in every other role he plays in a movie. He doesn't really deviate from who he is. He's a star. Like, people pay to watch him just be him. I want to see LeBron James in the slam dunk competition. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care if he does like a copycat of Michael Jordan's dunk from the free throw line. I don't care. It's LeBron James in the slam dunk competition.
That's the one thing I don't think he did enough of, was the slam dunk competition. Like, that should have been something he did. You know, that should have been one of his things, especially when he was younger. Now it's a little bit too old. You brought up The Rock. And so let's, again, we'll do the Super Bowl, folks. Don't worry. But I got to finish this thought. Have you seen the movie Basketball?
Yeah. Yeah, with the South Park creators.
Yeah, South Park guys. They didn't write it. A lot of people think they didn't write it, but they're in it. So I think one of the funniest parts at the beginning of that, they talked about how sports had declined, and so they tried to combine sports, and it was like a football player hitting and all that, playing baseball. But what if, think about this, what if the Dallas Cowboys are playing the New York Giants in week 7 of the football season, and the Eagles are off? And the Cowboys, if they win this game, they'll take the lead in the NFC East. What if the Eagles could do run-ins to help the Giants' defense?
No, adding a little WWE to the NFL.
Fletcher Cox in the stadium. He's running.
By God, he's going to kill him.
He just took Dak Prescott out. Michael Parsons. And then, the Cowboys have got theirs. And Trent Williams for the Raiders.
Okay. We got to segue to wrestling for a second, because they had the Royal Rumble this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I meant to look up stuff to talk about and totally forgot. That's how disinterested I am in wrestling right now.
Charlotte Flair, Ric Flair's daughter, won the women for the second time, only 2-time women's champion in the Rumble. And then Jey Uso won the men's in a huge upset. Like, that was out of nowhere. Like, him and John Cena were the final two. John Cena had him up in his like little finishing move, that AA whatever, and then Uso was able to push him out. So this is kind of a guy that's kind of organically, yeah, he's related to Roman Reigns, part of like the whole Samoan dynasty, related to The Rock as well. But he's kind of a guy that's kind of organically just the crowd loves him. You know, he does the whole yeet thing, and he has the glasses. He has a lot of charisma.
And give John Cena credit for putting him over, because that's why John Cena, who is John Cena. That's the thing. It's so funny how in the moment everybody hated John Cena because they felt that he was maybe pushed a little too much, you know, and all that. And he leaned into that and won everybody over. And then it turns out like he's one of those superstars that's like, yeah, I need to lose this. No, I don't need to win this. I need to lose this to help him. And I love that. I love wrestlers that are like that. That's the guys that make wrestling fun.
So the only reason why I even brought this up, and I agree with you, like the more, like as the years go on, I think myself and everybody else, they really love John Cena, like especially his acting. He is getting good. Like he's gonna eventually, he'll probably be the first wrestler that wins an Oscar. I really think he has that range. But the thing that's shocking to me, like when I'm like on social media or really YouTube, a lot of people are talking about wrestling that I never would have thought. Like especially like you know, when I go to work, I usually listen to the radio, just 105.3.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just talking about wrestling now, like whatever they're doing, moving to Netflix, being more international with the change, the shifting from Vince McMahon to Triple H, whatever they're doing is really working, because the WWE is being talked about more so to me than ever before.
I think that's a great one. I think that one of the things that has helped wrestling is YouTube, because you can get highlights, like how I watch Saturday Night Live now. I you know me, I'm a lover of Saturday Night Live. That's one of those things that I have been a lover since I was a kid. I always loved Saturday Night Live. I love it more now because I don't have to watch it on Saturdays. I don't even have to watch the episode. They put up the clips on YouTube, and I just, what they don't rate them, but they basically do by which clips go first, are usually the ones that are the funniest, and then you just kind of walk. I can watch Saturday Night Live like that. You can watch wrestling like right now. I know there's 3 or 4 different channels that are, Raw in 30 minutes, and they just cut everything out. Just they get to the basics. So if you miss a week or you just don't want to watch, you can still keep up with the storylines without having to read. You can just watch the highlights of them. I think that helps. I really do. I think they've been really smart. That's the thing people complain about, like with baseball and hockey. Like hockey right now, and I know you're not really into this world, but like I watch a lot of YouTube. Majority of what I watch is YouTube, especially when I'm alone. And, of course, that includes pop culture channels, historical channels, sports channels, video game channels, and all that. And one of the things that NHL is doing a really bad job of is they keep suppressing these influencers. And technically, that's what we are. We joke about it, but we make YouTube videos. And they're suppressing them using NHL stuff and copywriting them, and they don't realize that's actually hurting them, because you're not allowing fan bases that watch YouTube and consume YouTube to find you organically. You're trying to force them to NHL.com and all that, and they just don't want to go. And what wrestling has done a really good job of is been like, you know what? Y'all show our stuff. As long as you credit us, as long as you don't try to, you're not trying to act like it's you're not trying to show the whole feed and all. You're more than welcome to cut up a couple highlights and show it. And that is brilliant, because that gets the people that are young watching YouTube now. They find like the channels we like, Wrestling with Regret. I think you actually unfollowed him, didn't you?
Yeah.
I still like him. I don't watch him all the time, but like, every once in a while when he puts up some of his retro stuff, I still like those, because he's still, 2000. In fact, I just watched one of the 2000 WWE ones that I had forgotten about. That was just like one of the really, like, I don't think it was Bash at the Beach. No, Bash at the Beach was TNT, and I don't remember what it was, but it was a really bad pay-per-view, and I just laughed my ass off. So I can remember in the moment getting all excited about this. Was right when I was right in the middle of my wrestling renaissance, and I was over at a friend's house, Jackson and his friends, and we're all there ready, and we're like, that sucked. Let's go play in 64. But anyway, let's talk Super Bowl. I think that's what we're going to now. Of course, it is the Philadelphia Eagles 17-3 versus the Kansas. Wait. Yeah. Philadelphia played an extra game. I forget about that. Sorry. I forgot.
So now with the
bye.
Seven teams in the playoffs. Only one team has a bye. So yeah, Philadelphia was the 2 seed. They played 3 postseason games this season.
Yeah, I totally forget about that. That's impressive. Give them credit. Well, I mean, they didn't have to beat the Lions, though. This is a rematch of the Super Bowl from 2 years ago when the Chiefs won 38-35 in a game that Philadelphia. I mean, every Kansas City Super Bowl goes like this. The other team dominates for 2.5 quarters, but they can't quite put Kansas City away, and then Patrick Mahomes goes, oh, that's sweet. Now let's go play. The only time he couldn't was Tampa Bay, and the only reason, no, it wasn't Tom Brady, you dumbasses. It was the defensive line for Tampa Bay absolutely destroyed. I will contend that might have been, with a good offensive line, I think that was the best Mahomes in the Super Bowl, but his guys were dropping passes, and he couldn't get any pass protection.
It was the first game in Mahomes' career where he looked bad,
yep.
Which is impressive.
Though. I mean, he did by stats, but I mean, he's literally diving across 4 bodies, throwing an underhand behind the back, through the butt cheek, and then his wide receiver is just dropping it right in his hands. Like, just.
Well, yeah, I agree. Let me clarify. He looked bad because Tampa's defensive line dominated a great Kansas City offensive line. Like, Kansas City has a really good offensive line, and in this Super Bowl they'll still be good, and we'll talk about some more of that later, but. Kansas City has kind of built this dynasty. One of the primary things based off of the offensive line. Yeah. But yeah, Mahomes one bad game. It wasn't on Mahomes. It was just because his defensive line or his offensive line kind of failed him in that one game.
All right. So again, this is of course in New Orleans. Kickoff is around 5:30, probably about 5:50 after everything. Right now, the Chiefs. This has kind of been a moving line, but they're the 1.5 point favorites. I think that's fair. Mahomes on the year, for him, a really down year. He didn't even hit 4,000 yards. He didn't even throw for 30 touchdowns. He threw for 11 interceptions, 26 touchdowns, 3,900 yards. The weird thing is Jalen Hurts' year has been weird. Like, I don't know what to think about Jalen Hurts. 2,900 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It feels like he has regressed into, and I'm not saying this is bad, he's going to his second Super Bowl, but it feels like he's regressed into, I just need to protect the ball.
The way they're constructed for Hurts and the Eagles, they have a good line. They have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. He got 2,000 yards this season in 16 games. They have not failed when they just hand it off to him.
Yeah.
Now, they're going to play a Kansas City defense that is coached by probably the greatest defensive coordinator of all time in Steve Spagnuolo, and has a very stout defensive line with George Karlaftis and Chris Jones and Dana on the other side to opposite Karlaftis. I know you and I were chatting in our little chat. We were talking about like possible destinations for Myles Garrett. I'm like, man, it'd be very unfair if Myles Garrett went to the Chiefs and he's opposite George Karlaftis, and up the middle you got Chris Jones at 31 years old. That just wouldn't be unfair. It really would be unfair.
I mean, but that would just be, they might put up like 1970s defensive numbers if you got those two there.
Grits, blitz. 77 Falcons. Yeah, 77 Falcons, yeah.
All right.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna give you some stats. Kareem Hunt on the year. The Chiefs use a bevy of backs. They don't, this offense has been really freaking weird for the Chiefs because 90% of the time they struggle and then they find that flow for 3 drives and look like the Chiefs of old. You kind of saw that against the Buffalo Bills. And I kind of feel like this is going to be a lot like the last Super Bowl between these two teams. I think there'll be more points scored than what people think. But anyway, Hunt, 728 yards, 7 touchdowns, 200 carries. Travis Kelce, the leading receiver, 97 receptions, 823 yards, 3 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, the leading receiver for the Eagles, 67 receptions, 1,079 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Barkley, you'd already given it, 2,005 yards, 13 touchdowns. Individual tackles, both linebackers, great linebackers. Nick Bolton basically became Anthony Hitchens of the first couple of Super Bowls for the Chiefs, the former Cowboy. Just a tackle machine. He just gets in there, he makes plays. days. 104 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 interception, 6 pass defenses, 1 forced fumble. But Zach Braun was a tackling machine, just reminiscence of Zach Thomas back in the old days. 150 tackles, 3.5 sacks, an interception, 5 forced fumbles. This is a great defense, and Zach Braun is one of those guys that doesn't get mentioned all the time, but to me is so vital to this Eagle defense.
And he's a guy that kind of just came out of nowhere. He was a guy that he self-admittedly said that he just needed to be in the right fit, and the right fit just ended up being Philadelphia. You know, and being with Vic Fangio's defense, and he just blew up, especially that first game in Sao Paulo in Brazil against the Packers. I mean, he led the game in tackles. I looked at his name. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I knew about all the other Georgia players on that defense, you know, N'Kobe Dean, Nolan Smith, and all of them. And I see Zach Braun leading the team in tackles in their week 1 win. But he was consistent. He just kept doing it for the rest of the season, and it led him to being one of the best linebackers in football, defensive player of the year nominations, comeback player of the year nominations. What an amazing season for Braun.
I'm curious. It'll be interesting to see if that's something that becomes he just becomes one of the best linebackers, or is this a year where, and it could also happen where this a little bit happens on both sides, where everybody else on the defense that they have gets so much notice that he'll always be the guy that you think, oh, well, yeah, he puts up great numbers, but we have to worry about everybody else. And then he just continually just does what he does.
It could very well be that he could be the guy that just kind of is a wallflower, kind of just falls in the background, but still performs, you know, or he could be a one-hit wonder. I don't know. I don't know what 2025 holds for him, but all I know is he's very vital to this team right now.
All right, and sacks, George Karlaftis III with 8 sacks. But again, the Chiefs, Chris Jones is their guy. He just they manage well. It takes players like Chris Jones who, you know, stats are important, but that's not the only thing that matters. And they maintenance him, and he takes games off. And I'm not saying he's not hurt, but I do think that it's one of those that he'll miss games in the regular season that if it was the playoffs, of course, he would play. So to me, it's still, you've got to stop Chris Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Jones is their Mr. Inside. George Karlaftis is their Mr. Outside. And they got a solid guy, Mike Dana, on the other side. They had a first-round pick, Felix Nduki Uzama. He's a backup right now. So, like, they have some type of depth. But, yeah, Chris Jones he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's only 31 years old. And I love the fact that they're doing time management with him. Like, they're letting him take time. Like, I remember him not even playing the Steelers road game or later in the season where they beat him by 2 or 3 scores. Yeah, he's a guy. He's fantastic, and he makes everybody else around him better.
100%. And the Chiefs. I mean, dude, that is them as an organization. And you give everybody credit. You give Andy Reid credit. You give Patrick Mahomes credit. You give all the 5,000 wide receivers that come in. I now realize why Tyreek Hill didn't work there. And this is not a knock on Tyreek Hill, but you want to talk about quarterbacks that can. And again, we could make the case that he would be better, but Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a number one, but it's because everybody else on that team, dude, they have bought in to this culture of winning. They have bought into, hey, I don't need to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. I'll throw for 26 in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, I'll become the Patrick Mahomes everybody's used to. And they legitimately know how to turn on the switch.
They do, and they're very consistent in doing it. It's the most oddly constructed team. I said this about the Patriots during their dynasty. I just don't know how they're doing it, but when the lights are on and the game's on the line, Tom Brady's getting it to Gronkowski. Patrick Mahomes is getting it to Kelsey. Leo Chanel is making a game-saving field goal block. Trent McDuffie is ending the game with an interception against his opponent's number 1 receiver. Chris Jones is getting a key 3rd down sack while the Chiefs had not had a sack the entire game. Something about this team just says when they need it, someone on that team is going to deliver. and that's hard to beat.
Again, so that's and look, we're a Dallas show, so we're always gonna, for us as fans, you and I, we do it because we enjoy it, but also for Dallas fans, that's the thing that nobody remembers about the '90s Cowboys, the good years of the '90s. Yeah, I know Emmett got a lot of stats and Irvin got a lot of stats, but that was because they were great. But everybody bought into that. If we get stats, great. If we don't, we just need to win. And that's why you and I always joke about the argument about, Troy Aikman. People, his stats probably didn't equate to a Hall of Famer. But then when you see he won 3 Super Bowls, he performed amazing in the postseason, and his contemporaries were like, dude, he only didn't throw for 1 billion yards because he wasn't asked to, and he was fine with that. I don't care who you are as a program, whether it be baseball, football, any sport, your studs have got to buy in to that mentality or you will never be. And it goes back to, you and I always joke, we're like a play or a movie. We start a topic and we circle back to it. Why I think Dallas got rid of Luka. They didn't feel like he would ever truly have that mentality of, hey, let me get in shape, play better better defense, maybe lose a little bit of my offense, but become a better overall player. And I'm going to tie back into one more, like Mike Modano did for the Dallas Stars.
Ooh, Madonna's a good one because Madonna legitimately could have scored 50 goals every year.
Yeah, he could have been the American Wayne Gretzky. And I can't think of his name. The guy that was the head coach at first before
Ken Hitchcock. He was a former Canadian.
Is it Doug
Bob
Gainey?
Gainey? Bob Gainey.
He's the one that, he rode Mike Modano, and Mike Modano bucked a few years. There was a time where it looked like Modano might eventually get traded from Dallas because Gainey was saying, for us to win, you've got to be a two-way forward. You cannot just be a center. And if you understand hockey, two-way guys aren't just sitting down there chirping goals. They're playing defense. And Mike Modano built himself into being one of the best two-way players in the history of basketball.
Yeah, and then Madonna went. I know. Madonna. Terry's OutDrank The Coverage, y'all. Madonna went from a 50-goal scorer to a 30-goal scorer, but his defense improved, and it made the Stars improve. They were a top 2 team for the next 4 or 5 years. And Madonna in his prime years, he made a lot of sacrifices and it ended up paying off. They went to the Cup in '99 and won. They went back in 2000 and lost in 6
Martin
games.
Brodeur stood on his freaking head in that series. Jesus Christ. And they were good for a few years after. People forget that, it didn't just end there, man. In the early 2000s, they did get upset by Edmonton that one time. But, they made another Western Finals. They were a competitive team for a long time. The Stars have been consistently good since about 96. And they've had a lot, they've had some dip years. Mike Modano's last couple of years, they got kind of bad. And there was a couple stretch in like 2013. And it's funny that in 2020, everybody thought, oh my God, that was such a cute little run for this team. Now they're about to go into salary cap hell. And Jim Neal might be doing some of the best GMing in all of sports with what he's built with Dallas now.
100% agree, man. Before we move on to the Eagles, I just want to say the 2 best moves the Chiefs made in 2024. One of them wasn't even the DeAndre Hopkins trade with the Titans. I would say the best move is reconciling with Kareem Hunt when they needed a running back after Pacheco got out.
1,000%.
He's been so great for the Kansas City Chiefs at running back. And then the second one, moving Joe Thuney from left guard to left tackle because their tackles were trash.
Yeah. And
moving him really their interior offensive line was great. Thuney, Creed Humphrey at center, who's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Trey Smith at right guard. Those were their 3 best linemen, but their tackles, Jawan Taylor, garbage. DJ Humphreys, garbage. So they moved Thuney, one of their best offensive linemen, out to left tackle. And he's been like holding the fort there at one of the most important positions on their entire team. I think that's kind of made them more of a well-rounded team. I just love that they were able to take that risk mid-season and do that. And I think that's made them even more of a formidable foe.
No, I 100% agree. All right, leading interceptions. Again, the Chiefs don't have like one big ball hawk. Jaden Hicks leads with 3 interceptions. For the Eagles, it's C.J. Gardner-Johnson, one of the most underrated corners. He has 6 interceptions, 12 pass defenses, 1 forced fumble. By the way, again, L Dogs Gourmet Hot Dogs. Order below at ldogsgourmet.com. Use our ODTC code LDogs91 for $5 off. If you spend 25, and if you get the OWT dog, which you're going to want to get the OWT dog, get the combo, it's $3 off for the month of February because it is the OutDrank The Coverage hot dog of the week. Speaking of offensively, the Eagles are 7th, 27 points a game. Again, the Chiefs are right down the middle, 22 points a game. But this is weird to me because I still feel like the Chiefs, and I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I feel like the Chiefs are still more explosive, but they're really not now. The Chiefs have really done a good job of doing what we talked about this year. Teams are playing more conservative. The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are happy just to check down all game.
They're happy to check down. They're used to doing it this season, last few seasons. But when they need it, they have Xavier Worthy, rookie wide receiver from Texas University.
I get it. Really? Wait. Okay, there, Aggie.
It was a Freudian slip. Sorry, calm down.
No, I love that. But no, it's weird because he didn't stat out. Again, it's hard to judge players in the Chiefs because winning is such the only thing they matter. Worthy didn't have the greatest stat year, but my God, he had some of the biggest plays, including the very first time he touched the ball in his first NFL game, he scores a touchdown. And it feels like every time that he has like a stretch where he hasn't really done nothing in a couple games, he will then make 2 or 3 big key plays that end up being so big for that offense.
Yeah, and that's really all they needed him for this season. Eventually, he'll grow into being more of a wide receiver 2, maybe even wide receiver 1.
I think they eventually see him as a Tyreek Hill starter kit. The speed, I think he's not quite as stout as Hill, and I think that's the thing people forget about Hill. Hill and Steve Smith are the same. People talk about their height, but they don't understand these weren't short little dudes. These were short, stout guys. And Tyreek Hill is stout, and he gets underrated with how he can muscle through his routes. I think that's where Xavier Worthy is going to have to figure his stuff out. But I'm like you. I think they see him more as a 2-8, dare I say, an Alvin Harper-esque, not quite as tall, but kind of does the same things. You want Worthy stretching the field.
Yeah, he's definitely not a wide receiver 1. He might grow into it, but yeah, he's definitely like a 2 or a 3 right now, and he can stretch the field like you were saying. But that's the thing. Like, I kind of goes back to what I was saying about the Cowboys. If you or like the Bills this season, like if you can fill the roster, and that's hard to do, but if you can fill it up with wide receiver 2s and 3s, like the Chiefs have, their top 3 receivers are Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then throw in DeAndre Hopkins. None of those 4
done anything. DeAndre Hopkins, to be fair, that trade has not done anything.
So none of those 4 are wide receiver 1s at all.
Yeah,
and
but
they're able to figure it out.
I agree with what you're saying right now, but you drafted Worthy with a first-round pick.
Eventually.
Eventually. Now, in saying that about Hopkins, this feels like this would be the most Andy Reid thing. DeAndre Hopkins is going to have 7 catches for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that. Because that's what Andy Reid does. He puts these guys in the positions that where they're at in their career at that moment, he's going to get the best out of them. DeAndre Hopkins is not the guy that's going to go across the middle anymore and make, 15 catches for 300 yards. But if you put the third corner on him, he'll destroy that third corner. And the Eagles defense, they're really – we'll get into that here in a minute, but let's go ahead and go to offensive yards. Eagles are 8th. Chiefs are 17th. Passing yards, Chiefs are 14th. The Eagles are terrible, 29th. I don't know how much that is design or how much that is they realize Jalen Hurts has a ceiling on what he can do, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can still win with that. Rushing yards, of course, that's where the Eagles shine. Second in the league, 179 yards. The Chiefs are 22nd. But, man, when they need a first down on the run game, they always seem to get a first down on the run game.
Yeah, again, with the Chiefs, when it matters most, they get it. And a lot of teams are frustrated with that, but that's just well-coached and well-executed ball game.
Yep. No, again, and like I said, I understand why. I understand why like if you're with Buffalo or the Ravens or anybody that plays them multiple times or in a year, like it's so frustrating because for 3 quarters every game the Chiefs just kind of put around and then they figure it out. Now let's flip it over to the defense, and this is where it's kind of weird because everything on these stats are telling us this will probably be a little bit more of a defensive game. The Eagles are a top 10 offense, the Chiefs aren't. Both of these teams are top 5 defenses. The Eagles in points allowed second, 17 points a game, 17.8 to be exact. The Chiefs, they're 4th in the league at 19.2 yards. So both defenses have been absolutely phenomenal when it comes to that kind of stuff. Defensive yards allowed, the Eagles are the 1st in the league at 278. The Chiefs are 9th at 320. A lot of that goes to the Eagles control the clock with that run game. Passing yards allowed, the Eagles have been dominant this year with their pass rush, their linebackers in pass coverage, and their secondary. They legitimately know how to shut down passing teams.
Drafting Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have been immensely beneficial for that pass defense, and then also hiring Nick Fangio to be the defensive coordinator. Reed Blankenship has kind of taken a next step in his development at safety. Getting back CJ Gardner-Johnson has kind of solidified that back four for the Eagles. And then, I mean, just getting that great pass rush from Jalen Carter also helps. That a great pass rush goes a long way to making a pass defense elite.
Well, look, I love Larry Brown. Larry Brown was a great story. But Larry Brown was able to succeed for 6 years as the number 2 cornerback on a dynasty team because he was a solid player. But more importantly, you had a defensive line that just dominated the point of attack and was always living in the backfield and forced quarterbacks to throw too quick. You saw when they played teams that could block them up just enough, like the Niners, that Larry Brown would struggle. It's the same thing. Your secondary always is made better by your pass rush. I don't necessarily think it's the other way around. You don't rarely go, wow, that pass rush is really good because of the secondary, if that makes sense.
I mean, there's not a lot of times where announcers say, oh, that was a coverage sack.
Yes,
meaning that the secondary was able to hold on to their person for like 6-7 seconds, which is ridiculous. But that's the point I'm trying to make is a lot of the times it's the defensive. Again, like when you copied me when I said a team is built, it's just like a house.
Yep.
Your base, your foundation is the line, both offense and defense.
Sorry, we can't see each other right now because of the notes. I was taking a drink. I'm trying to think. When is the last Super Bowl that you remember where the offensive line or defensive line for one of the teams was a weakness?
2021 Bengals.
Yeah, the offensive line. You're right. But they lost, so that kind of makes.
Oh, so you're talking about a team that actually won?
No. I just meant, but no, you're right. Cincinnati, that's the only one, right? I don't remember anybody. Like, I mean, you think of all the great teams. You think of even the one-off teams. The lines were really, really good, and the Bengals was unique that year. Good one. Good reference. That's why I can throw things out. I know you're going to get it. All right, let's see. Rushing yards. The Chiefs are are 8th. The Eagles are 10th. Sacks, the Eagles are 15th with 41. The Chiefs are 19th, but with 39. So we're talking 2 sacks difference. The turnover differential kind of surprised me with the Chiefs. They are plus, but they're only +6, and they were 12th in the league. Again, because it feels like whenever they do it, it's in such a big moment. I thought they were more opportunistic. The Eagles were 6th with +11. But again, turnover differential also is not just you getting turnovers. It's your offense not giving up turnovers.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by this stat too, because the original matchup 2 years ago, both these defenses were great, but they were also getting a lot of sacks and turnovers.
Yeah.
This year's iteration are completely different. They dominate, but they don't necessarily need to sack you. And which you and I both agree, the sack statistic is probably the most overrated defensive stat in all of football. I would rather emphasize players that get to the court, like quarterback hits, or if there's a stat where you redirect the pass of a quarterback, kind of like what we were talking about with the 2011 Mavericks, where Tyson Chandler was redirecting the shot of anyone that tried to get in the paint.
Oh, you know, it could be a good stat. And there's so many, like, you know, again, in-depth stats. Pass affected stat by defensive linemen. That would be where you take the pressures, the sacks, the strips, the tips, the dips, and the hips. Now, you take all that and you create a formula, and you have pass affected. That would be a fun defensive stat, or for defensive linemen or linebackers if you're talking 3-4. And I guess safeties to anybody, you know, that's getting into the quarterback on a consistent basis. We got to figure that formula out. We could break the world with that. We could solve world hunger with pass affected plays.
Well, when I come over Sunday, let's have a couple of shots, and then we'll try to put some numbers on paper.
Wait a minute. I got to go on camera for this. Are we going to do that thing where we think we come up with the greatest formula? I always reference this, but one of my fondest Family Guys is they're doing a variety show, and they decide to smoke a lot of weed so they can be creative. And so when you see them go on stage, it's gorgeous. The song is beautiful. The music's beautiful. The next day they wake up and they're all like, you know, it's Peter and Louis, by the way, or Luis. Luis? That's weird. It's one of those nights.
His wife, Lois?
Lois. Yeah, I don't know why I was saying Luis. Hey, I'm not talking about a, you know, a more progressive Family Guy. The reboot. The reboot where Petra is married to Louis. Anyway, so it's Peter and Lois, and they do it. And so the next morning they wake up and they're all like, I'm really surprised we didn't win that. And Chris, the son's like, wait a minute. Do y'all not remember? And then he shows the real world, and instead of beautiful, they're all like, nah, nah. That's going to be our formula. We're going to present it. We're going to go up to ESPN and present this formula. And they're going to go, so you're saying that 2 + 2 = 4, and that's why Charles Haley's the greatest pass rusher in the world? Okay, well, it sounded better in the moment. But yeah, that would be a fun stat to try to create. Let's see. People out. Nobody, I mean, important people are out, but they've been out for a long time now at this point. Both of these teams have adjusted to Brandon Graham, Nakobe Dean being out. Of course, you know, Rashid Lamborghini Rice being out. Sky Moore. I totally honestly forgot McCall Hardeman was still on the Chiefs roster. I mean, again, you know, we always joke, my favorite word is a bevy of backs when a team has a ton of running backs. The Chiefs have a bevy of wide receivers. It's like they've always got 400 wide receivers there. So I don't really think injuries are going to be that big. Of course, Landon Dickerson, questionable. That might be. The Eagles have been banged up at the center position as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I really think after Kelsey retired, I really think that Cam Jurgens did a very good job at center. And I think I like that they got Nick Gates as well.
Yeah,
as a backup.
Oh,
their offensive line has just been great, especially that left side with Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson. I think Dickerson will be ready. He just has to be listed as questionable because he was a little hurt in the NFC title game. But having said that, I think Jurgens will be ready to go. Mekhi Becton at right guard has been solid. And of course, Lane Johnson, he'll be in the Hall of Fame once he retires, like probably first ballot. This is one of the better. I mean, I think their offensive line is better than the Chiefs. Like if we did like position by position,
I agree.
Or or whose running backs are better? Obviously, the Eagles are going to have the better running back game, and probably the better wide receiver.
Let's do that. We didn't put a stat up, but that's a great way because we're kind of wrapping up where we're at. Let's do that. Let's go position by position right now, or position groups. Best quarterback, Pat Mahomes. Jalen Hurts can win this game, though. Jalen Hurts can win a Super Bowl. I can make fun of the fact that he did have the fumble that kind of flipped the Super Bowl. It's really weird how Cam Newton gets trashed for his fumble because he supposedly didn't jump on it. Jalen Hurts doesn't get trashed for the fumble that just sat on the ground for like 75 days and like nobody went for it. But he can win a Super Bowl. He can win a game. He can make those throws when he needed. But he's not Pat Mahomes. Offensive line. It's flipped, but the same way. The Chiefs' offensive line plays really well, but the Eagles' offensive line and the synergy they have with the scheme. And again, this is why I legitimately think the Eagles are going to miss Kellen Moore if he does go to the Saints as the head coach, because that dude tried to be Kellen Moore of old, and about week 6 said, this is not working. I need to figure out now, why didn't he do that 3 years ago? I don't know. Maturity, all that. But I think the synergy of the offense for the Eagles is so good. Everything works good together.
There was a lot of pressure in Cam Jurgens replacing Jason Kelsey,
Yep.
and I think he's done a great job at center. I think with going back to Kellen Moore, he was a guy that was a head coaching candidate years ago, and he went to interview at Boise State. They weren't impressed with him. He was a quarterback there.
He was gone. Remember that? Everybody that felt natural. Yeah. And by the way, I think maybe they made a mistake on that, and they should have went with him because I think he would have done wonderful there. But yeah, I remember that because I remember us talking. That's what we still. I mean, I never disliked Kellen Moore. I never understood. Well, I understood the hate for him because Dallas fans are weird. That they hate on all the wrong things a lot of times when a season doesn't work. But Kellen Moore, he's had a top 5 offense with the Cowboys. His offense with the Chargers are not as bad as what people make it out to be. We did the stats a few weeks ago on that. And then what he's done in year 1 with the Eagles, I think Kellen Moore's a top offensive coordinator.
I agree with you too. And like I said on the prior podcast or the one before, I love the fact that he was able to shift his offensive philosophy and go more run heavy. And it ended up paying off. And I think that
it's not just simply, y'all got to watch these plays. It's not just hand off to Barkley and let him cook. It's great blocking. It's great. Coaches nowadays when they talk about their offensive line blocker, they call it fitting. You want your blocking to be a puzzle. It's not just blocking the guy, but it's kicking the, let's say, left end out to the outside, and then your guard kicking that defensive tackle into the inside, and then your center or the other guard pulling into the gap, and that leaves your running back with 2 different lanes that he can go in. That takes play building. It's not just simply running a play. Everything has to be a puzzle, and I think what the Eagles have done this year, you and I love the run game, 100%. I hate to say this, but I love watching the Eagles run the ball.
I mean, well, because you always think it's going to break for a long touchdown, which the Washington Commanders can attest to. It definitely is capable of doing. So, yeah, I agree with the great offensive line with like a Hall of Fame caliber running back is definitely possible. But yeah, I mean, going back to Kellen Moore, what I like about him now, he is more prepared to be a head coach because when the interview with Boise State, he basically didn't come across as someone that knew what it would take to be a head coach at a collegiate level or pro level. Like he didn't. So now the rumor is he will be the Saints.
So,
head
you know,
coach.
we were all like, I even said this to you last week when Mike McCarthy withdrew his name. I was like, oh shit, the Saints might be in trouble. But it's actually more of it comes out. It feels like the Saints were allowing, and this is the thing you do. It's the same thing when, you know, someone has worked for you for a lot of years and you had a lot of good years, but their time's coming ending. You do the whole, hey, we don't really want to fire you. Can you, will you resign? I think that's what they were allowing, like Mike McCarthy, and I can't think of who else it was that withdrew his name. I think that's what they were allowing, like, hey, we're going to go with Kellen, so why don't you just, we're not going to name it till after the Super Bowl because it's too late. So why don't y'all just withdraw your name and everybody looks good? I think if the Saints are smart, and the Saints go, okay, Kellen, make us work. First off, if he can get Derek Carr to stay, and I'm not saying Derek Carr's a Super Bowl quarterback, but he's a good, solid, perfectly fine quarterback. I think his issue is, if you look at his great years, he's great when you kind of keep him efficient. You don't let him try to throw for 400 yards. You let him throw for 250 yards, and you limit, and you have a good running game. With Alvin Kamara still there, this team could be a team that you and I both thought, oh crap, the Saints might be terrible for the next 5 years, to where they could maybe in an NFC South that's still going to be kind of all at the same level, be competitive and also rebuilding that defense that is now just gotten really, really old.
Yeah, you can rely on Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara to kind of lead it on the offensive side with Chris Olave coming back and Shaheed at receiver. So they have talent coming back. A lot of them just got hurt in the offseason or during the season. So yeah, the offense can carry them a little bit, and the defense can slowly but surely get younger. The Saints need to commit to whoever is the head coach. Of course, we think it's going to be Kellen Moore. Give him 5 years. Whoever it is, give him 5 years because it's going to take a while to reshape that defense to
but
get
you can
younger.
do it quickly if you make the right decisions. I mean,
That is true. Hey, Houston and all these other teams that have these like 1 year turnarounds, they've proven that you can.
As long as you're in a division that you can compete, and they are. I mean, look, Tampa is still Tampa. They're going to be good, but they're not going to be great. Baker Mayfield's going to Baker Mayfield, and that's good and bad. Atlanta, I mean, we're still waiting to see them finally. If Atlanta's that weird team that really roster-wise has not been bad for 10 years, and they've been to a Super Bowl. And again, that would be the most iconic Super Bowl. They lost it all. But you go, why are they not been better? They just got to figure out that next step. But they're a good roster, not a great roster. The Saints, they're the ones that they've got to hit on some home runs, but they can do it. The Saints have drafted decent. I mean, they built that defense through the draft. They built the offense through the draft. The offense that we think of from the mid 2000s, the Sean Payton, the Drew Brees, that was all. It wasn't like they were bringing in big stars. They weren't, these were people they drafted. So as long as they have patience, I think Kellen Moore can build something. Now, let's turn back our attention as we're about to wrap things up. How does? By the way, Andy Schottenheimer. Wow, Andy Reid, 301 wins, 162 losses, 3 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl losses. Of course, Nick Sirianni, 53-23 with 2 NFC championships. Look, I don't like a lot of his personality and stuff, but he fits in Philly. Like he has that Philly. You have to be 2 ways if you're in Philly. You have to be like Dick Vermeil, where you're, head down, grind, bring your lunch pail, work 18-hour days, or you be Nick Sirianni and you be bold and brash and say stupid things and wear the beat Dallas the very first time you play Dallas. And when they beat your ass, you own it. I give him credit for that. I think he fits really well in Philadelphia.
Oh, I think he's a perfect head coach for Philadelphia. And I think he'll end up leading them, as much as I hate to say it, to a championship or 2.
I don't think so. I think that the issue is right now. I'm not going to say I don't think so. Okay, I'll put it away. I think Kansas City wins the Super Bowl.
I mean, I hope they win the Super Bowl, and I do predict they win the Super Bowl. I had to step back and be more objective about this because obviously I have a bias here. The stats say the Eagles should win, but history says that the Eagles will, or the Chiefs will win.
Who is just flat out? I don't talk about when they play. You and I, we gave all these stats, but you and I have always said this. Football's not about stats. Football's about matchups. I just think the Chiefs, at the end of the day, match up better with the Eagles overall than the Eagles match up with the Chiefs, but it's not such a big gap that the Chiefs can play with their food. If the Chiefs are turning the ball over or anything like that, the Eagles definitely can win. And I know it's weird because I know Pat Mahomes has lost the Super Bowl, but we all understood why he lost the Super Bowl. As long as the Chiefs can protect him enough, I think the Chiefs will make the plays that they made. And I like Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts had a wonderful Super Bowl other than that fumble. But he had that fumble. I don't know if the Eagles can rely on him if the Chiefs do a decent enough job on Barkley and then say, okay, beat us, Jalen Hurts. That's what I think they're going to do. They're going to walk maybe 9 in the box at times. And it's weird to say that because you've got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you got Dallas Goedert. 3 really good targets. But I think the Chiefs are going to be like, we don't think Jalen Hurts can beat us. We're going to force you to throw the ball. And I just don't know if the Eagles can do it enough.
I don't know if they can. I think they'll hit some spots. I think Goddard and Brown will get. Yeah, there'll be some big plays, but can they do it consistently? That's the big question. And I think Kellen Moore is designing a game plan where he might have to rely on Jalen Hurts' arm more than normal. But the talent's there. Like you said, they have 3 legitimate targets. You got all 5 starters on the offensive line that at least a Pro Bowl caliber, and then you have a 2,000-yard running back in the backfield. So to me, the Eagles are pretty superior on offense. But again, the Chiefs have one of the greatest coaches of all time, the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. That's still yet to be determined. And the head coach is the de facto offensive coordinator. So, I mean, it's really hard for me to pick anybody other than the Chiefs in this game just because of the coaching.
And I think it will be like the last one. I think it'll be higher scoring than what people think. I think it'll be the Eagles hitting some big plays at times because the Chiefs are going to play so aggressive, but the Chiefs are going to gamble that you're not going to beat us enough with those big plays. Now, in saying that, if Barkley goes off, then all bets are off. The Eagles will win that game. If Barkley hits over 100 yards and is controlling the Chiefs' defense, I don't know if the Chiefs can win.
Yeah, I mean that is the biggest question mark because the Eagles' offense is predicated for 2024 on how Saquon Barkley does. And if Saquon Barkley gets you over 100 yards or 150 yards, it's probably going to be an Eagles win because they're going to control the clock. And then that keeps their defense fresh. They're going to pass rush. And they got an elite defense. So, yeah, that is in the Eagles' favor. So I'm thinking that the Chiefs will gear up to stop Barkley somehow, some way. But again, we'll see what happens.
All right, give us a score.
I'm going to go ahead and say Chiefs make history, three-peat, and I think they win it 31-17.
Oh, wow. I like the boldness there. I think the Chiefs win as well. I do think it's closer. I think this becomes that weird shootout. Like all the stats say it shouldn't be, but I think it's a weird shootout. I think it's close to last time. I think Chiefs win 35-31. I think Pat Mahomes does Pat Mahomes things, and on a 2-minute drive, drives them down the field and scores a touchdown late, and they win the game. I do want to bring up the one thing about Jalen Hurts that's that third rail. If Kellen Moore works in not just him passing, but more of those designed runs, because that is what they have been doing in the playoffs. That's what they did to Washington, where your Barkley or your pass game, and then Jalen Hurts hits you for a 50-yard touchdown. I just think it's funny you talk about Spags like that because he might have the greatest playoff run of a lot of like defensive corners. I mean, and we can talk about the Pittsburgh and all that, but that was a different era. Like outside of Pittsburgh and Dallas in the Super Bowl, every other Super Bowl was just a browbeating for 25 years. Like it was always a terrible game. It's different now because of the salary cap. Teams are closer. Coaching is more magnified. But the weird thing is Spags in the regular season, especially when he was with the Giants, they never put up like great numbers. They were a good defense, don't get me wrong, but we're not talking like 2000, Ravens or the 90s Tampa Bay Bucks or the 70s Steelers or 90s Cowboys and all that. But boy, in the playoffs, that's the defense coordinator I want all day, every day.
I mean, he was the guy that was able to get the defensive line pressure, especially with those Giants and Justin Tuck.
When they cheated the Cowboys in 2007? Yeah, you're right.
They cheated.
I don't know how yet. I will figure out. I don't know how, but they cheated. I think they deflated Romo.
Well, I think he was just on vacation for too long.
Oh God! Wouldn't it be funny if we found out like years later that Tom Coughlin paid for Romo's Mexico trip? Go to Mexico, have a good time. But no, I think the Chiefs win. I do think it, and maybe it's always I'm just hopeful. Look, I love defense. You know that. You know my favorite thing is rushing the quarterback. All my favorite players are defensive ends, rushers. But my God, the Rams Pat Super Bowl ruined me so bad that I don't know if I can stand a defensive game for the Super Bowl.
The only good thing that could have happened from that Super Bowl is that they awarded the Patriots punter the MVP.
You were so on point about that. You were saying that in the moment. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But then I went and looked at stats and like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, Edelman had a great game. He had like one of those weird, a ton of catches for not a lot of yards. But yeah, the punter kept putting the Rams back to where at that point, Sean McVay was so scared of Jared Goff. Maybe he's kind of proving something on that. He was so scared of what Jared Goff would do that he went so conservative.
Yeah, Ryan Allen missing MVP. Super Bowl 53, I believe it was. Yeah, 53.
All right. You got anything else you want to talk about?
No. I think we covered everything. I mean, we were only supposed to do an hour show, and the whole Luka trade kind of, and then De'Aaron Fox getting traded kind of made it a longer show.
Trade. So. Let me pull that one up because, again, we talked a little bit about it with Miro Heiskanen getting hurt. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Hang on, let me. I want to make sure I get the right one.
Oh, MLB commissioner or former MLB commissioner Faye Vincent passed away. Bladder cancer, 86 years old. He was a commissioner from 89 to 92. He had some highlights where he suspended George Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, for life, but he ended up coming back in 93 after.
That's what built the Yankees in the 90s.
That is what built the Yankees.
Brian Cashman ran things. Steinbrenner couldn't. They weren't firing coaches. They weren't signing expensive guys. They rebuilt their farm system. Of course, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera, Bernie Williams. And then they got smart, efficient players like Paul O'Neill, who everybody thought his days were numbered. Wade Boggs, people like that, who it's funny, nobody talks about that. Everybody wants to talk about Moneyball and the A's. And I know that the Yankees of the 90s weren't technically using Moneyball, but they kind of were. It's like get a bunch of efficient guys and build that, have pitching staffs with somebody that's really great, and then a bunch of great little 2s and 3s that's just going to throw a lot of innings. Rebuild the back end of the, we forget John, we molest girls. Wetland. We forget, he was a part of that before he became the Rangers closer, but he was, all that great building of that team, all because Faye Vincent suspended George Steinbrenner. And Vincent was always the reluctant commissioner because remember, he only was commissioner because Bartlett Giamatti died. Who, who his famous son is, don't you? Paul Giamatti. Isn't that crazy to think, man? I love that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I always thought Faye Vincent he did a lot of dirty work. He had to do a lot of dirty work. He wasn't perfect, but he was not a guy like, he wasn't like, and I'm not knocking the commissioner now. I think at times I get baseball needs to evolve, but I think they're trying too hard at times. Like I like the pitch clock. I 100% like the pitch clock. I like the bigger bases. I know that sounds weird. I like that they've limited pitchers throwing over to the first base because that just got stupid. But you also don't need to do like everything else that they're trying to do, like, ghost runners and things like that. I think you got to find that perfect balance. And I thought Faye Vincent did that. And by the way, it's February. That means I'm going to be watching Ken Burns baseball for the next few days.
Oh, that brings up one of our big off-season shows. Potentially, we're going to be talking about the top, the top sports documentaries of all time.
That will be one of ours. We're going to talk about that. There's, of course, Ken Burns baseball, Basketball Diaries. Those are the two. Not Basketball Diaries. That's the movie. I can't remember the name of that one, but you know what I'm talking about. Those are the two like everybody thinks about. But man, this is one of those shows we're going to have like 400 honorable mentions. I can already tell you that because there's so many little things. Well, like we've talked about, one of our favorite things, 7 Days to Sunday. 1995 Minnesota versus Dallas. TNT, because people forget TNT used to do the Sunday night game back then. TNT put together with NFL Films where from the moment the game ended the Sunday before, they were behind the scenes with the Cowboys and the Vikings. That is what led to the training camp show that HBO did. Hard Knocks. A lot of the people that produced the first few Hard Knocks is also, and Frank the Tank comes in 30 for 30. That is like, that gets its own thing. Like 30 for 30 gets its own segment in that show because it's not a documentary. It's amazing documentaries and they still keep making more. So I kind of feel like 30 for 30. Look, Ken Burns will probably win the best one-off and then 30 for 30 is like the best just series going.
Yeah, we might have to do a separate one for 30 for 30 for sure because that whole Boston Red Sox one. That was.
By the way, I watched the one that was it Netflix or was it Prime that did looking back at that same Red Sox team. It was good, but it wasn't the same, dude. The 30 for 30 getting all the fans and baseball, Kim Burns Baseball does the same thing with different things. Getting all the fans to talk about, I don't know. I think Netflix is doing really good on some of that. Frank D. Tank, he's a washed out kid from Corpus Christi, hard scrabble life. Works at the Dollar General as the assistant manager. Doesn't get a lot of respect from Luann, the manager, but each day he's ready to polish his life off. He lives whiskey to whiskey. I'm making something up. Frank is a dude that it's so funny. We always joke about, like, you and I met through people, but Frank and I were 3A down low message board friends for 10 years before we ever did anything. And then a couple of years ago, he lives in Corpus, and we always go to Corpus at the end of the summer. We finally hung out and had some drinks at a sports bar and stuff. That was the first time we met, even though we've had many long talks on Facebook and all the things. So that's one thing I love about this stuff. But anyway, I think we're done, brother.
Hey man, it was a good show, man. I can't wait for Sunday. We're gonna do our Super Bowl, top Super Bowls, worst Super Bowls. And then we'll do the live show.
And we're going to do some other things, but yeah, I'm excited. The Super Bowl one is our first look back of the 2025 season. And again, it's top. It's us. We say top 5 best, top 5 worst. We're basically going to rank all this. Let's just rank them all. Let's just rank this. You already did that, by the way. Great job. It really so the way we work this show is intern Noe, the pro, the commissioner, he'll send notes and stuff and he'll add tidbits. And so when I said, hey, let's do this, or I think we kind of came together on this one, like that should be the show. You ranked them all. So let's just rank them all. Let's just do that. Let's be generic. Let's just rank them all. We won't show videos from all of them. We'll only show videos from the top few and the worst. But I think we should, because we're going to do it anyway, so we might as well plan it.
I mean, yeah, the videos we'll show will probably be just Cowboy centric. So yeah.
Hang on. Everything okay? I just wanted to. What was it I wanted to say? Man, I cannot remember.
I am the champion.
It's coming to me.
I am the champion.
We got 6 months before the next season.
The loser.
I'm not the loser, cuz.
I am the champion
of 2 OutDrank The Coverage leagues. I'm going to be like Trump. I'm going to eliminate 1 league this year so nobody can ever win the double that went. The Doge of OutDrank The Coverage is going to eliminate, for monetary reasons, 1 of the leagues so nobody can ever win 2 leagues in a row or thing.
Oh, do we have a movie we want to talk about in this offseason?
Oh, yeah. We're going to be... No, we're back. Bad Movies and a Drink's going to come back. We did one at Halloween that it didn't come together like I wanted to for Haunted House. We're going to redo that one. I don't know if that will start off. I kind of feel, Noe, because we went and saw this one in theater.
Little Giants. Let's go.
Okay, yes. I would love to.
I mean, Ed O'Neill.
That's a genuinely good movie. But I mean, look, our first 3 bad movies and a drink have been good movies. Roadhouse, don't anybody ever say they're not good. Point Break and Any Given Sunday. But I was thinking about a true bad movie. It's about a quarterback that had played in the Arena League. And then one day God touched him and said, son, I need you to go win a Super Bowl for the Rams because America and God. What?
The Kurt Warner spectacular.
Oh my God. Movie. That was such a terrible movie. Like, great cast.
Yeah, Zachary Levy.
I know Zachary Levy's went weird, and he's gone to a certain niche. That's fine. I'm not going to knock him on that. You believe what you believe. But acting, he was funny in Shazam that came out like 2 years before. Shazam, I haven't seen the second one. I heard the second one kind of gets stale, but the first Shazam is legitimately funny. Like, he does a really good job. Ooh, Johnny Be Good. That's a great movie. Anthony B. Hall plays a stud quarterback. The kid that had played a nerd in like 16 Candles and stuff is a star quarterback. Robert Downey Jr. is his best friend in that movie. They have a scene where it's basically SMU TCU brings him to Texas Stadium to have sex with a chick so he would sign with him. Great reference right there. Oh, yeah. See, Mario knows. That's why I love our fans. Mario knows the Kurt Warner movie is terrible. Like, you and I will go see a movie in person and we will love it in the moment and then go back and go like, you know what, dude, that wasn't that great. Thor 4. Thor 4 is the perfect example. You and I went and saw it together in the moment. We're like, oh, that was fun. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I think that movie kind of sucked. And you're like, yeah, it did. The Kurt Warner one, we literally looked at each other in the moment and said, that sucked.
Also, Jack and Jill.
Okay, so that's the one that I used to say I would not watch again. And then I watched it again with Studio Wife. We might have been a little stoned. I laughed a lot more than I thought I would. I legitimately laughed way more than I thought I would. So that's a good one too. Yeah, Bad Movies and a Drink is coming back. And by the way,
Wonder Woman 84 was terrible.
Dude, like that one tried too hard. And by the way, no offense to Godot, she's not a good actress. Like I'm just acting pretty, all that. She's not a good actress. And Wonder Woman 84, they tried to have the Donald Trump style guy, and they tried to do too much. And people like Pedro Pascal was like dominating the screen, like you didn't even care about her. We all paid for that movie. Me and Noah went and saw Kurt Warner like the day it came out. Like we made a whole day of it. We went to had drinks. We went to Chewy's. We went to the movie. Like I said, usually we can like go, okay, it wasn't great, but we got over it. No, we literally that movie sucked, dude. Like, and Studio Wife, who knows nothing about football, so later that weekend she said, "Don't ever take me to a movie like that again. I will break up with you. I don't like sports, but I can deal with a sport." Like she loves Goon. We watch Goon. She loves Major League. We watched Major League this weekend. She loves Major League.
Oh, we should review Goon. I'm surprised we haven't.
That's actually on the thing. So you kind of spoiled it. I think Bad Movies and a Drink should continue what we're doing and do a lot of sports movies this year. So if you don't know, when we do these shows, we'll basically in the off season get together once a Saturday, once a month, and record like 3 or 4 shows in a row. And you can kind of tell which is the last show, especially if we've been drinking the whole day. You can kind of tell. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 or 5. Yeah, at least 4 or 5 Bad Movies and a Drink. But I wanted to say the way we're doing things different on the high school end next year, or this year, but next season, I won't be tied up with coaches' shows. And people don't understand how much those took out of my time. You know, because you've been there. When you're doing 20 shows a week, that takes up a lot of your time. We're going to be doing the same amount of content, but in different ways, which will allow us to stretch our legs more, which means Bad Movies and a Drink don't have to stop in the regular season. We did a Bad Movies and a Drink for Any Given Sunday. That was a happy hour stream, and we got great numbers. So we're Bad Movies and a Drink starting. We'll start that in February in March, because the February shows are pretty packed. What we're doing Sunday, but we'll bring out Bad Movies and a Drink starting in March, and we're going to have one each month. And I think we should. I think we should have the sports theme and kind of lean into that.
I would definitely be down with that. There's a lot of good content out there.
I totally agree. Oh, by the way,
Washington has been advised that at some point the referee can award a score if this type of behavior happens again. For now,
I kind of feel like I now need to download the famous Samwise. This is not Cleveland. We do not act like that here. That's got to be part of that right there. That's going to do it for us, folks. We do appreciate everybody joining us again Sunday. We're going to be live for the Super Bowl show or Super Bowl game. We'd love if you join us. It's going to be fun. We're just going to sit here. We're going to have good drinks. We're going to watch the game. We're going to comment on the game. We're going to comment on the commercials. And we do appreciate our sponsor that we can't talk about, but we can talk about this one again. L Dog Gourmet. Use our code $5 off if you spend $25 and use the code LDogs91. That's Tuesday through Thursday, 4 to 8 p.m. at the Cook Line Kitchen in Plano, Suite 2000. Also, you can get them from DoorDash. You can also pick up. And then they're going to be back at the Frisco's Farmer Markets on Saturdays and Sundays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can find all that out online. Just go to ldogsgourmethotdog.com. And I do appreciate everybody for joining us. We're done for tonight. Intern Noe the Pro, the Commissioner. I'll see you Sunday, buddy.
See you Sunday.
All right. Until then, he's Noe. I'm Terry. This is OutDrank The Coverage.
Closing time. Open all the doors and